You're watching the Senssphere channel, and now some chill discussion after the week's angst, with the Doctor Who Detox Hour, or two.
Din them, don't they? My God, they're noisy devils. So, laughing kookaburras, laughing at what? Anyway, Halloween is almost upon us. Have you seen the state of some of the gardens around here? They're better than some TV sets. Suddenly, every parent is a set designer. Who knew? Anyway, maybe he did. All right, Brendan checking in again to the Doctor Who Detox Clinic for a detox hour that always ends up being 2. Fathom that. Too many issues to erase, I think. So if you've had a week of Who-universal angst, your regional matrix network has been on the blink again, redacted by some naughty, masterly scammers, and you've had some untimely mishaps, then you know the Doctor Who Detox will ease your time-wandering woes, cleanse your Whovian palate, and help you feel refreshed to watch a Who classic at the weekend without having interplanetary PTSD over Sutek turning into a space-hopping Snoopy, or Davros growing legs and a working eye like some freshly healed Cyclops, or wondering whether the underpants the 15th Doctor wore in the bi-generation are bigger on the inside. Transdimensional boxes. So, if you got your galactic cuppa, your celestial coffee, tastes different this time. We have some great timely topics to get you talking. I mean, I have to say, I'm going to ask them. I'm going to go there. I'm going to be like Lloyd Grossman through the keyhole. What was your bedroom like as a kid? Was it like a Doctor Who den? Did your parents allow you, eh? Or did you have to wait till you're an adult and have a man cave? What scared you as a kid on the TV? I mean, is there something Doctor Who and RTD should be emulating? Because kids' fears, kids' nightmares, they're universal. Our Doctor Who, as in its current iteration, kind of feeding into that, pitching into that. Fresh from our Twitter poll of Doctor Who fans on the big debate, cancel, reboot, rest, or continue the show. Yeah, that was on Tuesday night. We focus on one aspect that I wish to explore further. What's wrong with Doctor Who remakes while the DEI and social progressive fads fade from the media executives' glare? Other shows have done remakes. Why is Doctor Who different? Surely it is a safer option than continuing to bulldoze all canon for the sake of continuing on. Couldn't we just suddenly meet a numberless Doctor on his travels? No reference to continuity at all. Get back to basics and free the Doctor of all baggage. Travel light, like a budget Ryanair TARDIS flight. Not time flight. Okay then, quick housekeeping, just to kind of keep us straight. Write to me on X, where you will find a monster opinion poll later on today for our Sunday Halloween show at 6 p.m. with Neil Cole and friends, or email us at sensethesphere@gmail.com. Our hotly debated show, which I referenced there, is still out there. Some great insights, and Time Agent Brendan was on fire. My God, did I go fast. Check it out. We will get the panel's take on the results later, and that 60% figure, yes, I need to kind of say a little bit more about. Our On Leach show from last Sunday is still there for those who wish to take a timey-wimey trip down memory lane. Please subscribe and join our merry band of time wanderers in the 4th dimension. So cheers for that if you've done it. If not, away, come on, pull your finger out. So that's the housekeeping done. Next bit is getting on our panel. And let's see where we can start here. So I'll say hello. I'll measure it up and get it equality. How are we doing, Dwayne? Sirens of audio?
G'day, how's things? I'm looking forward to a detox. I'm feeling very toxed up this week.
Yes. We need to kind of just distract, escapism. Yes.
Yes, please.
Lots of that. Well, it's on the cards. And let's bring in Dan. How are you, Dan?
Hey, gang. Really well. Ready for some detoxing.
Yeah, you're on peak form tonight. You said you're energized. You said.
Yep. That's right. We
He's
can
going to
go
go.
all night,
Yeah.
all afternoon.
Tune in for Cybermat Strikes was typing into the thread on Tuesday when I was going at it, and he was basically saying he wanted an argument today about the remakes. So here we go. And our fourth of the quartet is here. How are you doing, Doug?
Hello. I'm good. I'm feeling very toxic.
Oh yeah. Oh heck.
Oh, yeah. So I'm ready. I'm ready.
Right, we're ready. We're ready. I think it sounds as though you really are ready. Right, so here we go. So the first one, as a nice little kind of detoxifying moment. Those who watched my Long Leach show will know that I actually said, I said when I was looking up all the bits and bobs, I was thinking, what did your mum, tends to be a mum, allow you to have as your Doctor Who bedroom? So when you were a kid, and you can see I've got my Target books, it's a mixture of things because there's a Middlesbrough flag, a red and white flag, and I was only allowed so much because she talked about dusting and all the rest of it. So you've got an issue. So I'm going to ask the panel and the thread, what was your bedroom like? I was allowed a notice board at one point, and you can see I've got my Long Leach brochure there. Doctor Who posters always help, don't they, from the monthly. That's at university, where I obviously had to balance it with various other things. But you can see I've got a few Doctor Who things there. This is still at university, 1988. But yeah, so there you go. So, Dan, did you have a boy cave, so to speak, a geeky Doctor Who bedroom where you're allowed?
Not really, but not because I wasn't allowed. It was just that back in those days, it was hard to find things here in Sydney. It wasn't like it is now, where you didn't have the internet to just get your hands on everything. So, yeah, I wouldn't say I was restricted.
You're making up for it now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and a lot of it's come in recent years too. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that if you had free reign. So Dwayne, what was it? Go on, take us back. What was your kid's bedroom like? Were you allowed free reign?
Well, I shared my bedroom with my brother, so it wasn't until Mum and Dad built another bedroom when I had the room to myself that I really was able to let rip. But a lot of my pride went into my off-air video collection. So I would have first of all, my beta cassettes would be on a bookcase. I had plenty of Target books as well. But I would number them, and so I had them numbered, I had them indexed, and I would usually fit, because I was terrible in cutting out the credits. So I could fit on a 3-hour on a 3-hour cassette, I could get two 4-parters, and I would have an episode of usually All Creatures Great and Small, believe it or not. So that was my early collection. But when I started buying the videos, I think Spearhead from Space was pride of place on my, I don't know if you remember the first cover when it was released on video, just the Auton's face on the front of there. And that, because, that probably my favorite story, because the sheer terror that it gave me as a young child, and to have that on cassette and to have the cover there was fantastic. Yeah, but not too much merchandise. I wasn't into merchandise so much.
It's funny you say that. You've reminded me about my VHS was the big thing for me, because I had a mixture of off-air, recordings as well that I curated and carefully catalogued and got cases for and made up front covers and things like that on my dot matrix computer.
Well, I'll bring in Doug now. I know there's a bit of static, but Doug, we'll take you back in timey-wimey. What was your bedroom like as a kid?
Oh, it was a long time ago. No Doctor Who stuff. I had a lot of old movie posters on the wall, which I've actually carried through to the present day. I actually collect classic movie posters from the 1930s and 40s. Quite a few books. My grandfather was a great one for reading, so I had a bookcase headboard, and he bought all the classics like The Three Musketeers and Moby Dick and that kind of thing. I think I'm kind of making up for it now. I'm currently sitting in my son's old bedroom. This is like what I call my boom room, but it's actually I'm calling it boomer room. Boomer room sounds a bit like a brothel, doesn't it? So I've got all my toys and stuff in here. So I think I'm making up for it now in my later life. So this is my bedroom now. Well, not my bedroom, but this is my my fun room, I guess. My happy
Yeah.
place.
We've got
It's not the image of the Fendal skull behind you, is it?
No, that's my new hobby. I'm trying taxidermy. I'm not really. It's just Halloween themed.
Well, welcome to the thread. You
Thank
know,
you.
and we've got David Hardin here. My folks let me put posters on my wall. I know I got away with it with a notice board for a little while. That was it, really. But it was only when I went to uni. But I wasn't allowed to use anything to pierce the wall. So I put up my Doctor Who posters with tape, which meant they often came off. Yeah, I mean, you had to sneak blue tack up and all the rest of it.
That reminds me, I also had, for as far as posters go, I had a bunch of Andrew Skilleter posters. I had them. I think they were bigger than A3 size. They were quite big, and they were all laminated. So I had all them up on the walls in blue tack wherever I could too. So
yeah, I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Is it something about being? Yeah, I mean, I can see your posters up there. I mean, is it something about you've got a massive interest in one thing, whether it's football, a sport, a Doctor Who, something like that, that you need to see it on your walls? Because I have to say, if your mum and dad allowed you, I think you would, wouldn't you? You know, or if you had your own bedroom and not fighting your brother. Stephen Braddock here. As I got old, it was books and video cassettes. Didn't come till much later. First videos of Revenge of the Cybermen, £29.99. It took me weeks. I was earning £1 an hour as a hotel waiter, working through the night while I was doing my A levels, and £1 an hour, and they took 17p off every 4 hours for a break you never had. Revenge of the Cyberman was this kind of gold. I mean, never mind the planet of Ogre. I mean, my God, it was gold dust. It cost a bomb. Yes, Revenge of the Cyberman.
didn't even have the right Cybermen on the cover.
No.
That had Earthshock Cyberman, didn't it?
Yeah, the original one did. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sean, he's still recovering. He's got PTSD from Tuesday night. All my interrupting him all the time. Sorry, Sean. For lots of Doctor Who stuff as a kid, except for Christmas presents, he's making up for it now. I think a lot of us are, aren't we? I mean, you know, my study here is blooming loads of stuff. I mean, it's like a proper studio. Right. The next thing is, while we're still thinking about what got us into Doctor Who and, you know, what fires up as imagination-wise, my other question, just as we kind of build to this, is, even before I get to the topic of Doctor Who, as a kid, what actually scared you? Because I have my theory that RTD seems to be looking slightly the wrong way. He's forgotten that Doctor Who in its DNA used to be behind the sofa stuff. It's kind of scare the kids, thrill the kids, plonk them at the settee, then you've got them for the night. And I feel as though, you know, if you could tap into kids' nightmares and what they really are scared of, it would really work. I thought Stephen Moffat tried it pretty well, to be honest, the crack in the wall and all that stuff. But before we hit Doctor Who, I don't know if you'll have seen this in Australia, Paulus the Wood Gnome. That absolutely freaked me out as a kid. I was about 3 or 4 years old, and that was the witch. And she would fly through the air, and she was looking for Paulus the Wood Gnome all the time. And that brought one fear as a kid, which is you're safe in your bedroom, you're safe sat with your mum and dad, but actually when you're outdoors and you don't know where you are, or somebody's out to get you, that's when it gets scary. And I just thought that one, so if anyone's remembered that, Paulus the Wood Gnome. And then the other one, when I was a bit older, was our dad would let us stay up a bit while Mum went out, his babysitting. And Armchair Thriller on ITV. Oh, my God. Look at that chair. And suddenly a kind of silhouette of a man sits on it. And it's really creepy music. And if you see the book on the other side there, my God, I remember the Faceless Nun. And it was just this nun who runs at you in some crypt somewhere, and she had no face. Oh my God, it was freaky. And so anyway, there's two of the thrills I had that have nothing to do with Doctor Who, but if I was RTD now, I think I'd have a faceless monk. The time meddler would have no face. So anyway, lads, what scared you as a kid? What really thrilled you?
Frankenstein, Dracula, all the classics. Yeah, all the old stuff for me.
Is there any niche? Let's have a look. Let's try with Dwayne. What got you as a kid?
There was one episode of the original Star Trek that really scared the pants off me, and it was an early episode I discovered. It was called The Man Trap, I think it was called. It was where Bones fell in love with this woman who was left on a planet, and it was actually an alien monster that was feeding off everyone's salt in their bodies, and just the look of their, I don't know, the look of this monster had this wide open mouth that really freaked me out as a kid. I'll never ever forget that. Apart from Doctor Who, that was one thing that really gave me scary thrills. That
Well, there's a few coming here for people to join in. Space 1999, Dragon's Domain, says David Harding. I'm trying to think what happened in that one, because I did like Space in 1999. He also says The Elephant Man.
Oh, yeah.
Which,
Well, I saw The Elephant Man when I was probably 9 or 10 for the first time. Absolutely scared me. It's now it's become one of my favorite films of all time. It's probably in my top 5 or 10 films. And yeah, I've always got that childhood fear in the back of my head. You watch it now as an adult and you think, well, it's not scary, it's tragic, it's sad. But as a kid, it was very, very frightening.
That's interesting.
I mean, I've got a couple here.
Yeah.
Sorry, Doug, I'll just add these first. Yeah. Stephen Braddock says it was The Changes and Children of the Stones. Oh yeah. That was a funny one. Derelict says Doctor Who should be aimed at teens. I felt during Colin Baker's run, Doctor Who was growing up. Then we got to season 24. Lots of laughs. Yeah, the Black Nun episode is remembered that I've mentioned, but also I don't remember. I did watch X-Files, but I can't remember specifically the episode with the plants. Michael Q says Frankenstein films. Which ones are you saying, lads? But David Harding says, now I don't know if you all saw this. Murder by Decree. Oh my God, it's Sherlock Holmes and
Christopher Plummer.
Yes, Christopher Plummer. Yeah, and the Jack the Ripper character has black eyes, and he seems to be furtive in his movements, and he's just like a whipper. He's like a fox. And there's a moment when he goes down the back streets of London and all the fog. It's very Talons of Wen Cheyenne. And then he sees a street, sees a woman who's still out, and you hear you get a glimpse of his eyes. It thrilled me as a kid and scared me, really scared me, because you just suddenly got a glint of his black eyes. You could hear his heavy breathing, and he ran and strangled her. So yes, David Harding, that is something that absolutely still scares me now. It's a moment. It's visceral, American Werewolf in London. Well, yes, I was 10 at the time. The only movie that has since scared me. The End to Space 1999. Deaths over Dominion. Is it? So there's a few there. Oh God. Paul Richards, Salem's Lot. Remember the window. Tap in the window. Stephen King. Oh, that was freaky. Oh, yes. Sixth Sense is mentioned. I'll shut up now. What were you going to say, Doug? I apologize.
No, that's okay. It's not. Well, it is relevant. Dwayne just sparked my memory that the Elephant Man is the only film that moved me so much. I've only ever seen it once. I saw it in the cinema when it first came out. And it moved me so much, I can't bring myself to watch it again. And I love movies. I've watched them hundreds of times. But for some reason, John Hurt's performance and the fact that it was based on a real person, I never know to watch again. That really just it's an amazing film.
And it was what got me interested in David Lynch, I guess, over time. And there is a film that he did that. The film that got him the Elephant Man was called Eraserhead. Which, if you've ever seen Eraserhead, that is one of the most bizarre films. It's like watching a nightmare before your eyes. It doesn't make much sense at all, but it sort of, every time I put it on, it kind of transfixes me, and I can't look away. But it's got some very creepy imagery in it that he takes over to the Elephant Man.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we've got Salem's not as resonating with people. The vampire in the kitchen scene. Do you know it? It's funny. As kids, we remember different bits. So to me, it was the vampire at the window. Somebody else says in the kitchen, and do you know what? I can't even remember that. Isn't it weird? Eraserhead. Oh, we're getting a whole load here. The Elephant Man is a great film, but not 100% correct. Well, I'd rather they made it though. I have to say, it's got such pathos in it. It's so sad. Really, so well done by John Hurt as well. Very difficult performance it must have been. So I thought this was a good starting point as this Detox, because basically when every time we go back to Doctor Who and we're discussing Doctor Who and judging Doctor Who and obviously good old RTD now, sometimes you have to go back to brass tacks and you have to go, well, what scares kids? Because I have to say, as parents now, you know that what scared you and what scares kids tend to stay roughly the same. Kids are scared by the dark. Kids are scared by what they don't know, the unknown. Kids are scared by various creepy crawlies is another classic one. Why isn't RTD tapping into that? To me, that seems to be where you go.
Well, the dark was something that scared me as a kid. So I think Moffat really tapped into things like that with the crack in the wall and the silence in the library, those kind of episodes where there's darkness involved, because that always really terrified me as a kid. So those basic and things under the bed, girl in the fireplace, totally terrifying to any kid with something just lashing out from underneath the bed. That is a childhood fear that I think Moffat does that. He's done that best, I think, in the new series.
Yeah, you wonder, and I mean, there's me. I'm not a parent, and I'm just wondering, But as a teacher, you hear lots of things, but you wonder because Stephen Moffat, with his kids, must have seen and heard on a regular basis what was scaring his kids, and he's tapped into it so easily. But I just thought, even if you're not a parent, somebody like me, but you're creative, you can surely empathize with, well, what scared you as a kid? What got you as a kid? Because to be honest, if you fed that back into Doctor Who, it would pay off.
It's like
that's not to say that. Sorry, Dave.
No, that's all right. You go. It's all good.
It's not to say that RTD hasn't done scary things, but it's because I think of episodes like Midnight.
Yeah.
I was going to say Blink, but that wasn't RTD. What was the other scary one they did? Real Waters of Mars.
Waters of Mars terrified me. That terrified me.
Those two in particular, I think they are scary to adults as well. They're not tapping into those childhood fears, because you're not going to get too many adults, that are scared of the dark or things lashing out from under the bed. But yeah, Waters of Mars.
That makeup. Look at that makeup.
Midnight are great for the jump scares. He's good at doing jump scares. I'll give him that.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, we're gonna really get bogged down in this soon. Don't worry, because I'm going to be talking about whether the formula of Doctor Who. That actually, there's a reason why I do like episode ones, because it was actually when you didn't see the monster in all rubber that actually wasn't that brilliant. It was the build-up, the anticipation, the guessing, the unknown, the total mystery of it. And just a whisper of a voice, stuff like that. That's what worked. What fired up and fueled the kids' imagination. Yes, sometimes when you saw the pterodactyl completely walking in bad lighting, you go, "Oh, right, okay." But actually, when you just saw the hand and you saw the anger and stuff like that, it really worked. And for every Zygon payoff, because the Zygons really did pay off when you saw them. You have the pterodactyl. Oh, right, okay. It's an 80s monster in a light set from Top of the Pops. Okay, right. And I just think, you need more of that episode one. I think I personally think the reason why Doctor Who really worked for me is that build up. Did you all get excited by about 20 minutes into episode one, knowing the problem is going to hit, the reveal might happen, and you could feel your little heart getting excited that, right, we've had 20 minutes, you've shown me the world, now what's going to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. And then when the cliffhanger finally hits, that visceral feeling, like that physical feeling of tingling I would get up my spine, from the cliffhanger and not being able to handle wait. I don't know how you did it in the UK, having to wait for a week. We only had to wait one day in Australia when it was being repeated. But it was it was like a physical reaction not just a mental one.
Well, Lee Smith, he was saying Davros was top creepy, and I will say it's the Genesis one for me. That moment you saw him, like I said, the 20 minutes in episode 1, a few mutos here, Sarah's getting chased. It's all very warlike, and you've got some stroppy people, soldiers, but then suddenly a ruin, a bit of mist, and suddenly, oh my god, that was the thrill of it, and it's so scary because you're in an old ruin. It's very supernatural and ghostly, isn't it? Really, that setup, and then you've got the body horror of Davros, but of course the very recognizable Dalek base. Yep. David Hardin here is talking about full circle. Yeah, the Marshmen emerging from the water, and Romana trying to fight off the marsh spiders, only to have the marshmallows she's holding split open, and there's more on the face. Yeah, she'd been in some vampire film, hadn't she? So she kind of was having to do that a few times. State of Decay as well. But you see, that this Noah scared me, and that's why it was heavily edited, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I always found possession where they had people possessed used to mess with my head. Like people being taken over.
Yes. Familiar people, yeah. Like, what was it, Invaders from Mars? That film scared the shit out of me because I didn't even trust my parents for a while. You're right. That's scary.
Yeah. Oh God, we're getting loads now. This is when it all piles in. Paul Richards, I think Revelation of the Daleks is one of the darkest episodes in the history of this show. The man who's been experimented with, is it Stavros? I can't remember. I always the one who they wanted Laurence Olivier to play that character just for a brief moment to roll down the hill with Colin, and then that Dalek.
It was Stengos.
Stengos, that's it. I'm saying Stavros. I think I'm thinking of a character Harry Enfield played.
I think in that episode where the transformation scene where he's talking to his daughter is one of the most disturbing scenes in the history of Doctor Who. You talk about the violence in season 22. They never bring that up, but that was probably more disturbing than anything in that whole season.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
It was, and it was well done, wasn't it? It was well acted. It was well directed. You really went in, and just that tooth. I always remember the tooth, the metallic tooth. The ending of episode 2 of Brain of Morbius, where Sarah's blinded and approaching the brain in the jar. Oh yes, a brain in a jar. That's kids. It's goo. It's out there. It's brilliant.
Yeah, there's nothing grosser than a brain, is there?
Yes, and especially when the brain spilled later on. Remember that moment when Morbius goes, "Sorry, Morbius, your brain's all over the floor." How's he going to recover from that? This got me the Green Death. And I've put 3 shots there, as you can see, from Planet of the Daleks, Joe Grant having that space plague thing on her, the space plague, the cyber plague, as you know, from Revenge of the Cybermen and other stories, and then the Green Death. But the Green Death, of course, where I was transfixed as this little, 3-4-year-old in a hospital ward, staring at this, going, oh my God, no mum and dad around. Night sister couldn't give a damn. And you just sat there, stuck in those tight sheets in the bed, going, and did I survive? Oh boy, did I. And did I want to see it in a week's time? Yes, I did. Scare the kids. This is what you want to do, RTD. We're playing too safe, I personally think.
Definitely.
So what I'll do is we'll do that in a few little installments because I'll have different kind of headings and that. But did you know there was a notable birthday today, lads? In our Who universe.
No.
So Derek Jacobi is 86.
Wow.
86 today, Jacobi. And I don't normally do birthdays and that, but it brought to mind a topic we could have a few minutes on because I think it's important. And it's this. I think when I look back at the Derek Jacobi very brief performance as the Master, and then as Professor Yana, of course, and I know he's done Big Finish and we can reference them, but I still think it tells me that the best way to portray the Master is very still, very quietly menacing, not running around. So, for example, if you think of Roger Delgado, sometimes he's locked up. Sometimes the Anthony Ainley Doctor was Khalid and he was just kind of mesmerized by some orb and trying to impersonate some Oriental. That was... But and then you had Yana just, messing around with the rockets and all the rest of it. The deadly assassin. You had the master emaciated and unable to move much. I do think the best master is the master that is still and therefore more menacing and actually more calculating. And so, happy birthday to Derek Jacobi. I think your delivery on just those few lines told us the master that we should have had more of. I don't know what you all think.
Totally agree. I think Roger Delgado sort of played it like a Bond villain, didn't he? He was sophisticated and suave and actually quite likable. Whereas I think some of the later masters have kind of gone a bit over the top. They've all been talented, but I think sometimes less is more.
I'd also say that the Doctor is better when he's slowed down as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think this master is probably one of the best. Derek Jacobi's got such a handle on the character. You've got no idea. If anyone's listened to the Big Finish episodes, he is just amazing in those. It's one of the best ranges on Big Finish. There is one episode in a box set called Killing Time. I can't remember the name. Anti-Genesis. That was a fantastic box set because it's he's getting inserted into the genesis of the Dalek story rather than the Doctor. So it's brilliantly done. But there's a box set called Killing Time where there's an episode featuring him and Katie Manning as Joe Grant, and she makes, remember a little reference she makes of her uncle getting her the job at Unit? Well, it turns out that her uncle is actually the Derek Jacobi master, and he's messing with her whole life.
Me.
And it's just insane.
Wow. It
is insane. It is a brilliant story. So if you get a chance to listen to that, it's in a box set called Killing Time.
I remember that.
That sounds awesome. It's not canon.
Oh, it's what did you say? What did you say? It is canon. Big Finish is canon.
Okay.
Well, just while we are celebrating the portrayal of the master by Sir Derek Jacobi, which I still think, and I've bought a few of these Big Finishes. Sometimes you buy stuff. It's like you buy a book and you never blooming read it. I need to kind of sit down and do it because his voice, he's a damn good actor. And I think he's got the menace that the master needs and deserves and should have by reputation. But we've got the dribs and drabs and the thread on our cliffhangers and our scares. I know the crinoid, I'm sure we will mention. That moment when Sarah's arm is put down, and even before Keeler, not Keeler, I was getting mixed up. But yeah, that was... Whoa. Stephen Braddock, Yana was a great reveal. Never saw that coming. He was the master we should have got. And it was so disappointing when he regenerated in the TARDIS. I noticed to leave another cliffhanger, but oh no. There are moments in Doctor Who under RTD1 when I thought, wow, Doctor Who is going places it never did. To get Sir Derek Jacobi to play the master, and then a few minutes later he's regenerating. It's like, oh, what are you doing? Now I know you've got to get a contract, and I know you've got to negotiate with Sir Derek Jacobi, but did they give it a try? I really don't know.
I like the way he minus two. It's like killed. I've been killed by a girl.
No, by an insect.
By an insect.
Yes. And I think a lot of the thread are saying what we're saying, which is I think you just need to slow the master down. Slowing any performance down. If we had Rachel on, she would be saying as an actress, slow the performance down and it delivers more weight and heaviness and just give good dialogue then. So yeah, there's a few there. Derek Jacobi from Paul.
I do like Sacha Dhawan as the master.
Do you? Because that's a manic...
Yeah, I can't. Yeah.
Well, he gets manic towards the end.
He goes
he's
back and forward.
Yeah, he's much more like, he's not manic like John Sim, that's for sure. Although John Sim did a very good job in that Cyberman episode.
Yes.
Yeah,
he was very different in that.
Yeah, he was.
Yes. Well, I got him to.
But also like Missy too. So
I like Missy.
So let's have a look. We've got Derek Jacobi would have been a great doctor, but RTD seems to prefer younger doctors. Oh, there's this old chestnut that they seem to think when we got Peter Capaldi that because the ratings went down, that it was because of his age and stuff like that. And you think, There might have been a few reasons why that happened. Breaking up a season, some of the stories didn't land, that sort of thing. So yeah, so I really wished. I know he's in Big Finish, but I wish we could bring him back somehow, Derek Jacobi as the master. And I never understand this. We don't have to do masters in order. You could have an old, I don't quite know why we have to say, oh, well, at the moment, the master is whoever. I mean, he's a salt seller at the moment, so that's no good. But yeah, that's the problem. Right. We were talking about Doctor Who scares, so let me go around the panel. I'll start with Dan here. So, Dan, tell me one of your... Because I'm trying to kind of go wider on the theme here. So I'm thinking like, you're a teacher, you're a parent, you're a guardian of somebody, and, you're aware that children are scared of dark, scared of this, scared of that. What were you particularly scared of? If I was going to write a 4-episode story of Doctor Who to absolutely thrill you as a kid, what would be the topic that would get it?
Oh, look, I mean, I grew up on things like Night of the Living Dead and just like that, what was the other, Nightmare on Elm Street and all that sort of stuff, the 80s horror stuff. So, I mean, I reckon Stephen Moffat actually ripped off the Night of the Living Dead stuff in, is it Dark Water? Deep Water? The Cyberman one with Missy, when Missy comes back. And the way he brings the Cyberman back with the the rain going into the ground and all that. That's pretty much the opening scene of one of the Night of the Living Dead movies where all the people get resurrected.
While you're mentioning that, the only shot I've got, though, if I get it right, I always get my numbers wrong on this at the moment. Let's have a look. It's this one. Hey, gosh. I don't know why it's jumping around. I'll get it in a moment. It is that moment when you see the skeletons all in the water, don't you? And then the skeletons turn into Cybermen. Oh, that was good. That really was good. That was up there with a lot of good Doctor Who sequences, wasn't it? So you like that? So do you like that kind of hint in State of Decay at vampires? You kind of like that kind of push?
Yeah. Look, you don't need to be subtle about it.
No, no. Blood-sucking vampires, that'll do. Dwayne, where would you go, with your child's mind? What did you kind of get thrilled that Doctor Who focused on but scared you at the same time?
Well, I think for me, the main scare came from, I remember my original terror came from Spearhead from Space. So that was it was a combination of something that was everyday, ordinary, mundane, like a shop window dummy. But in the Spearhead from Space, the Autons also had a sound coming from them as well, which they didn't use in Terror of the Autons, which I always prefer the Spearhead Autons, because they had that sound, which that wow, wow, wow sound, sort of humming in the background, which made them very threatening to me. And you were mentioning skeletons before. It made me think of Jason and the Argonauts. I always love that film too, when the skeletons come up to fight. That's all very clever and everything, but it's when the skeletons just freeze for a second and then they look and they start screaming. So you've got this horrific image plus a sound that it's the scary sounds that got me as well. So you'd want to put that into your Doctor Who, something that sounds scary. I mean, I love audio, so anything to do with sound gets me.
No, I agree, because actually I can hear the sound of the Zygon spaceship, since I've got a Zygon in front of me here. And when they were moving all their instruments on the ship and all that fantastic sound effect, actually thrilled at the same time, plus their whispering effect. Again, this is what I was saying about the Master. The Zygons are very, very scary, but they're whispering threats at you. It's fantastic.
Do you know another thing I found scary in Doctor Who? Believe it or not, it's an early childhood memory. But you'll laugh when I tell you this, but I was actually quite frightened by the Garm in Terminus. So I remember I've got the vision of that scene where he's walking through the dark with the glowing red
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah.
So it's another sort of representation of something coming out of the dark at you. That was what scared me too.
What scared me is when I watched that is what is going on in this story. Actually, isn't it funny? Terminus is a funny one in many ways, but since you've mentioned the Garmin Terminus, the one thing that got me in Terminus was, when they saw the astronaut, he'd been driving the ship for all those years, but he was a skeleton. And you think, oh, it's the skeletons. I like the skeleton stuff. I like the image of the Fendal where that glowing skull. Love that. For some reason, go on.
No, the thing that I liked in Terminus was when Nissa just starts taking her clothes off for no reason.
I got to appreciate that as I got older. Yeah.
That's not scary.
No, I didn't. Oh, sorry, we're talking about scary things. Sorry.
Off topic, off topic.
Yeah. Sex in Doctor Who is not allowed, Dan.
No sex in the TARDIS.
Yeah, J&T would go mad. Outside the TARDIS, it's all better.
What are you talking about? It was his era.
The beauty of being inconsistent as a showrunner. David Harden, I remember finding Kroll scary. Not when you could see his head in the background, but when his tentacle, because it had I think they were trying to do Fury from the Deep, weren't they? They were trying to do another version of that, I suppose.
You mentioned Image of the Fendal. Do you remember that scene, that cliffhanger where the Doctor grabs the top of the skull, the sound effect comes in of the skull's kind of, the skull doesn't move, doesn't do anything, just got a little glow in it. But the acting on Tom Baker's face, when he's sort of the skull's trying to possess him after he touches the top of it, I thought that was really, really well done. And it comes down to the acting. So Tom Baker had a lot to do with that particular cliffhanger, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
the noise of that machine like winding up at that point was bloody disturbing.
Yeah.
Now this is interesting because I was a bit older, and of course it depends. When you're older, you have to just imagine being younger, so to speak. Like Midnight didn't scare me because I was an adult, but I can see how Midnight would freak you out. Randy here says the Mara becomes more disturbing the older you get. I think it takes a few decades to appreciate how really frightening it is to have something mess with your head. And actually, the more you look back at the two of them, Kinder and Snake Dance, the more you realize, Tegan has been infected, troubled. He has seeded thoughts and memories inside her subconscious, and I didn't like Kinder as a kid. When I was watching Kinder, it was not doing what I needed. Do you know what I mean? I'm wanting the classic Doctor Who build up and all the rest of it. But yes, I agree. The more I watch Kinder, especially now, the more I like that psychological thing that's going on. And in this one here, the Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit, Toby, and all them numbers and all the rest of it. That, I have to say, episode 1 of this two-parter I thought was brilliant. And that moment of that poor girl in space and that horrible little Irish lilt to the music as you saw her drifting away, I thought was really well done. And then when the Ood's eyes turned to red, there was so many touches there, and it was a good voice. Was that Gabriel Wolfe playing Satan?
It was.
Yeah.
Very good.
But that's where Doctor Who's at its best as well, where it gets you to care about someone, even if it's briefly, like Linda with a Y.
Yeah.
And then does something horrible to them. Or like when Osgood cops it from Missy. Those moments where and you feel that tension rise because you know that the stakes are real.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I sometimes it's you need the lines, a good bit of music from whoever was the composer at the time, and it just kind of just works. And obviously I was a lot older now, but these evil snowmen didn't do it.
Well, I will say one thing about the snowmen. If you can recall what they sounded like when they had the same roar as the Yeti from the Web of Fear, which I thought was a nice touch. They didn't do it. It was only sort of in certain sections. It wasn't featured or anything, but I thought that was a nice touch to put that throwback to the Yeti roar.
Well, David Hardin, you're on form today. The horror fan rock, doing a horror, Hammer horror. You see, my argument is, if we talk about what made us scared, and what scared your kids, and what you just know most kids are scared of when they're talking at school. If you've got an 8-episode series of Doctor Who, there's not going to be as many thrills as there used to be when we were kids. But if you tie into the thrills that every kid finds universal, this Doctor Who show will still take off. And I'm always obsessed with saying Doctor Who should be darker. It really should, I think, be a thrill a minute. And if he allowed it to be a bit more episodic. Now, if you've got 8 times, say, 1-hour episodes, couldn't you have 16 times half-hour episodes?
Yeah.
I know it doesn't quite work with the finances, but surely if you could just allow Doctor Who fans to have a cliffhanger proper, where the first episode is all about mood and atmosphere, because I think that's what's missing. I personally think in a lot of New Who, where it's racing to the finish, you're missing just atmosphere.
Should it be a thrill a minute though, or should it be, that suspense? Because it's the suspense that gets you on edge, I think.
Yeah, no, you're right, Dwayne. I misspoke. I didn't even mean that, if you get my gist. I don't mean a thrill a minute. Doctor Who was never a thrill a minute. It builds to the thrill.
Yeah,
like I said, at the 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't a kid, but those scarecrows, the way they looked, would have been brilliant, I think. God.
Great.
I mean, there's the Mara from the DVD Blu-ray set, and a little bit better than the original. But yeah, to me, it's still robots. I mean, I'm not going to go down the Planets of the Daleks road again, but a Dalek in a corridor chasing you. That's it. That's all I need.
Possessed Tegan was more scary to me than Mara. Like,
Tegan's scary. I mean,
I was going to say current day Tegan's more scary than Mara and Tegan.
And I am being fair, because what's he called? Ashad, is it? I can't remember the lone Cyberman.
It is Ashad, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I wasn't a kid, but I can see that would really scare, because you've got it's almost like Lytton updated from Attack of the Cybermen, really, because you've got a lot of stuff going. Oh, he's like a Robo-Man updated.
I wish they had brought him back.
Scary. That's really scary. Yeah. I mean, that was the stuff that scared me. The Cybermen. Because the whole idea of body horror terrifies me, even to this day. And that was a lovely design.
Yeah.
It is body horror.
Yeah, I think body horror, rubber monsters, of course. Well, there's a difference. Ice Warriors, to me, always seemed so slow. I've seen the older ones when I wasn't a kid, and I can maybe get it a bit. But the Sea Devils, to me, because they were, like I said, they were fast, they were nimble. And it was that, plus a dark sea fort, and a whisper. Just have them whispering. But they're scary because they're all so fast, and it was that thing. And I also thought that submarine sequence and the sea-based sequence is what got me. And of course, it was all about the dark. And as you were saying, Dwayne, it was the sounds on the submarine. You knew that something was docking or attacking. You've got our creepy crawlies, our good old giant maggots. They're not in it as much as I thought they were, That in your head, you think the giant maggots.
No, they're not.
Yeah. So I get disappointed, I'll be honest with you, with the 6-part of Green Death when I watch it now, because I'm still imagining there's going to be loads of Green Death action, giant maggot action. So yeah, it just shows you what your memory does. The mutants, that sort of thing. I mean, if I was I'm going to do my opinion poll for the Sunday show, but basically, if I was going to ask you to nail it, is it the rubber monsters if done well? A kind of strange monster with a strange kind of figurehead and all the rest of it. Is it is it a kind of androidy, mechanical, war machine, Dalek, something? Is that what scares you? Is it psychological? Is it one of the phobias? Yeah. And I was going to almost separate it. I mean, phobias and psychological, yeah. I was going to go classic psychology for one of them, which is nights, dark, that sort of thing. And then the phobias as a separate section, like spiders, heights. So I don't know, if I went down the panel, Dwayne, what would nail it for you as wow, that type, I would say, would work.
So I'm looking at the mutant there, going to myself that I never found that overly scary. It was the more for me personally, it was the more humanoid aliens that were scary, like axons and the sea devils and the crinoids that, you know, as they were mutating, not the full crinoid, but the half man, half crinoid. That was pretty scary. You know, the Autons, the Silurians, even the Cybermen, I find more scary than the Daleks.
Definitely.
And in fact, I think the scariest Cybermen for me, I always find them unnerving, is the Wheel in Space Cybermen.
Yes, that's the right.
Because
Yes.
they've got like a little sound effect behind them as well, and they kind of
Yes.
move a little bit slowly. They're a bit less human, but they've got this slowness and a sort of what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of like nothing will stop those Wheel in Space Cybermen. They'll just keep going and going and going and coming at you. So I find those the creepiest. But yeah, and Shara's Jet, you know, one of my favorite stories of all time. It's the human and the humanoid threats that get me the most.
Yeah, and again, he had a good voice, Christopher Gable. He had a good voice, and he can act because you can see his eyes and still his mouth. And of course, Graham Harper did a very good job on this. It's a good mask. It takes me back to Magnus Greel slightly because, of course, as a kid, you want the moment the mask comes off. You just do. It's the man in the iron mask. You just want to know, don't you? And it's the Phantom of the Opera, isn't it? It's just classic.
Well, he did do that story twice, didn't he, Robert Holmes? He did it with Talons, and then he did it again here, just a different setting. So he was looting his own ideas.
Yeah. But the argument is, how many sea-based ones did we have? And I don't mind another sea-based one. Can we have another one in the new series, RTD, please?
It was long enough between stories to have a similar kind of theme there. It was fine.
Yeah, and he changed it. The Green Death, the one with the maggots is Randy. Anything with Shooty, the one with the... the thing is... Soul Deed. Yeah, that was that was scary for a different reason. A director needed to intervene. Cybermen, Proto-Terminators. Yeah. Major's Guild. I've always found the Cybermen to be the weakest of all Doctor Who monsters because they're incompetent and their plans make no sense.
Oh, crap. Crap.
Do you think?
Yeah, Cybermen are the best. Come on.
They're funny because they always say how logical they are, and then they tend to always want to get revenge on the Doctor. So I always think, hold on a minute, you've got some emotional bypass going on here. And then Jerry Davis, when it was called Revenge of the Cybermen, well, how can Cybermen want revenge again? You know, hello. But no, they are funny. So when you look at that Earthshock argument, between Peter Davison and the cyber leader, I always do wonder, thinking, well, hold on a minute, you know, eating a well-prepared meal and sunsets and all the rest of it. But the cyber leader does seem triggered at various points, which
I like through the 80s with the Earthshock plus Forward Cybermen, where they kind of ignore the fact that they're not supposed to be they're supposed to be emotionless, and just instead they're just, you know, aggro and
excellent.
Excellent.
And isn't it funny, see, because I was just a bit older by 1979, but Sir Sidney's Rough Diamond says Scaroth, the Jaggeroth, scared the hell out of me in City of Death. And of course, I was of that age then, Sir Sidney, where I was thinking, oh, it's a rubber mask. Oh, yeah. I love the story, of course. The story sold it to me. The Jaggeroth was all right. And pulling the face off, which obviously is an iconic moment in Doctor Who, but it didn't get me. But isn't it funny? We're all different ages. And of course, I'm happy it got you because you're a Doctor Who fan now, and that's how it works. So we've mentioned that the giant robot got me, you know, as well. I have to say, I was at peak Doctor Who then. It was all happening. There's the Marshmen that we were talking about. It was just well directed, that. This creepy set with the Ruin and Ark in Space got me as well, because you had their little sounds, you know, you had the horrible, I mean, you know it in Australia, the cockroach sound on the tiles. Oh, my God. Especially in Queensland, the size of them bloody spines. There's my favourite master, if it's not Jacobi. And the Mutos. I was disappointed with the Mutos, because as a kid in episode 1, when you saw their trench foot limping after Sarah, I was expecting to see body horror.
And my first experience of the Mutos was on the Genesis of the Daleks LP. So
Yes.
my imagination had me thinking body horror too,
Mm.
which you never got in the TV series.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I suppose it's cost and all the rest of it. I'm sure that would have been what he wanted in the script, because the other beauty of an episode 1 is you had the dialogue when, was it Nida who was describing what the Khalids were and what the Mutos were, the scarred relics of ourselves, and whoa, I thought, so as a kid you're going, oh God, wow, and then you get them, but they need a wash, basically. That's what they are. They're vagrants, that's what they are. But and then the planet, you were talking ages ago, Dwayne, about sound effects. Planet of Evil. Number one, it's a brilliant jungle, but my imagination was fired up just by the brushing past of the vines of this invisibility is a good one. I love the invisible Spyrodons and the invisible Dalek and the invisible kind of antimatter creature in this. Loved all that.
I love the sound of the oculoid tracker as well, as that was going through looking. Brilliant sound. Could this possibly be the best set ever made for Doctor Who? I whenever I go back to that, it just amazes me how good it is. It's just so atmospheric, this one.
Beautiful too.
There's lots of other jungle sets in throughout Doctor Who, but this one just stands out as one of the absolute best.
Who designed it?
Beautiful.
Do you know?
Yeah, it was Roger Murray Leach.
Roger Murray Leach.
It's
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
And this is the moment when Philip Hinchcliffe nominated him for a BAFTA for that set.
Yes.
But notice I used the key verb nominated.
Yeah.
Obviously, something else won. But you know, come on. This is when Doctor Who was underplayed by the BBC itself and those lovies in the industry. You know, I'd love to know what the set won it that year, because you're given on a script. Roger Murray Leach, you know, you're on some antimatter planet beast. You've got to show. You know, you must pull your hair out going, I've got some sticky back plastic. I've got some cardboard over there. I've got a very small studio. What? And look what he does.
Beautiful.
Plus, there was liquid. He had it all. I mean, it was
The
so
lighting.
heavily
The
lit.
lighting was perfect in this one too. Like if you look at a couple of like a story next season, The Face of Evil, the lighting was too bright on that. Compared to this, and I think that had a lot to do with it. In this
It's
one,
really, it's like really good theatre lighting, isn't it? It's brilliant. The lighting, it's excellent.
Yeah.
Even the fact that he went to the trouble of putting like the water in the bottom of it, like, and you know, having it sand. You can see it sandbagged there with the plastic liner, just so they can have them trumping through water.
Because of course, obviously, you never saw this on screen. You know, I always try and reveal some shots that we haven't seen because they're in that lovely photo research Facebook group where you just see some of the shots that just didn't quite make it, and I just like to see how it was made. So there's one that, obviously you didn't see on screen, but well made, well structured, because how a designer thought how you can do slightly different angles with the same set, because you can't make a whole jungle. So he knew you had to have a chase sequence, then you had to do this, and you could. And of course, what we've got here, Stephen Braddock saying, it freaked me out when the victims in Planet of Evil came back as desiccated husks. I know.
Speaking of desiccated husks, can I jump on a comment that I just noticed in the thread? Lee Smith says the human mutants from beneath the planet of the apes were scary, and when I first saw that film, they absolutely freaked me out.
Oh, me too.
Were they all down underneath the planet worshipping the holy bomb? I think it was.
Yes.
And they all unmasked themselves to worship the bomb, and it was just so scary.
Yes.
But that had sound too, because they were singing some kind of church choir style song, but it was all out of key, and it was really, really creepy. Anyway, I agree with Lee Smith on that.
Yeah, so do I.
Well, Major's Guild, you must have had a really good imagination. I watched Underworld recently, and I try my best. I tried desperately. I really did go for it. I thought, come on, you know the score with Underworld. I know what it's based on, you know, but I
love it.
Do you? I know. I do try. I wish I hadn't done what they did with the CSO. Although I will say one thing: there's not as much CSO as I thought and feared from my memory. There are some sets. They are. But oh God, you know, when you get to that point, you've all had all that build up, and suddenly it just doesn't quite deliver. And it's a shame. Planners of Evil had a wonderful alien planet set. We don't get that type of creativity today. No, we get an enormous inside of the TARDIS, which actually, why? All those different ramps. It must have looked so exciting to draw, but I can't see when you'd ever use it in the plot. I just... you know, when you have an amazing TARDIS interior, whether it's a Doctor Who movie and all the rest of it, and you can see there's different areas for different episodes you could have used.
Yeah.
But our present TARDIS interior, I don't know what you narratively do with it.
Yeah, I wish they'd
They're
show
going
us
to
more
have Davros
TARDISes.
as a companion originally, but of course,
Really?
you know, Davros doesn't have a chair anymore.
Oh,
Anyway.
of course. I wish they'd show us more rooms in the TARDIS. I'm waiting for an episode where, in the really, really early Doctor Who, you saw the living quarters, you saw lots of facets of the TARDIS, which is meant to be an infinite size, and all we ever see is the control room. I like the new design. I do like it, but it needs to be more lived in. It needs to be more decorated with some books and some antique furniture, and I need to see some other rooms. I think the best TARDIS is probably the Paul McGann movie, apart from the original, of course. I think that had a real lived-in feel to it.
I'm maybe being cheeky by showing the mandrels, but, you know, I'm playing
I
to
love the mandrels. I love them.
You wanted to take them home, did you, Dwayne? I mean, you see, this shot, Dwayne, I liked because I've never seen it where one's got his back to the camera. It's obviously a rehearsal. I mean, they're so harmless. Look at them.
Look at Ninja Turtles.
I think they're having
it's my
a pep
favourite
talk.
story from season 17. Kind of chops between that and Creature from the Pit, those two for me.
I love a good drug story.
Yeah, that was my frustration with that one, Dwayne. That I think it's a really, really good story. Really, you know, in the proper sense. I loved all that Nightmare in Eden thing and how it was done. Clever, actually. I just, as we said, lighting, just turn it down a little bit. Was it the cliffhanger when the Doctor pulled away? I think had K9 made a hole in the wall, and then a mandrel just pops in like a puppet. Hello, just what a shame.
Yeah, I think
that actually had a decent jungle set too. That story.
Yes, it did. It did. Well, these are two favorites. I mean, talk about missteps. I mean, was anyone scared by these? I mean, you've got the giant rat as it used to be, and the giant thing.
There's a giant rat there. All I'm noticing is Louise.
Well, yes. I mean, that was a sequence for teenage lads, I think. But well, and teenage lads on the left going, "Oh my God, really?"
There's Louise.
Creature from the Pit. I'm sorry, I can't get out of my head. But I was very forgiving of it. I really was. I know it's a big joke, but I like that story as well. I have to say.
Me too.
Yeah. Me too. He had a nice bit of lightness, and Lady Adrasta was so camp, and it was brilliant. And the wolf weeds, that was a nice little touch. I love the wolf weeds. Right.
There was another good jungle set on the Creature of the Pit. That was another good one.
It was, and the big eggshell.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and actually some good model work actually in that period as well. You know, can you imagine the scripts always saying that Erato weaves a web around this and that and the black hole and this, and you must be thinking as a model maker, what? And you know, having to do everything like, but they managed it. I have to say their imagination then was off the scale. It was a slightly above Space Babies, you know. It was really much more intense. Right. Okay. Screeching of brakes. Change topic. Continuation. Are you warmed up here, Cybermat Strikes? Now, thread. Cybermat Strikes on Tuesday night as a loyal panelist popped onto the channel and said, fight. He didn't like me going on about rest, reboot, continue or cancel. And when I went through each option, I talked about remakes, didn't I, Dan? And I think, and right, this is it. Have you got your cups of tea and everybody, or something stronger? Because Dan's going to take the world on here. So let's get this set up. So
Brendan suggested that we could remake existing Doctor Who episodes with 2024 production values. And I said, wash your mouth out with soap. It's disgusting.
Maju, you've really loaded that statement. I'm triggered by
No,
it.
that was a direct quote.
It was, but the truth is, with the production values of now, I suppose I meant the budget of now. Production values, I know the word values might have too much weight on it, and I don't like some of the values now of media organizations. So the truth is, the argument was, and if everybody didn't watch our stream on Tuesday, naughty, have a good look at it, because we go through all the comments and results. In fact, I've been very democratic. Anybody who wrote back to me.
It's too late, Brendan. They're cancelling you in the chat. It's over.
So what we've got here is, you can see 20-odd% say cancel, 17% said reboot, 41% said continue, 22% said rest the show. And then I stayed clear on that. That's 59% basically said they are unhappy in some way with the present show and something needs changing, resting, or cancelling. I rounded it up to 60 safely, but that's all I did, because out of the 41% who said continue, every comment said, but change this, get rid of. So in the end, it sounds as though continue was a version of reboot. Anyway, 60% keeps me safe from the trolls, because I'm not lying or exaggerating. I'm staying safe, but it is a bigger number than that, I'll be honest with you. So my argument was, right, Dan, and then I'll see what the other lads think in the thread. And it's just an argument and a hypothesis. I'm not saying I'm nailing my colours to the mast here, you know. But
don't sit on the fence. You know what you said.
If you can't continue as is, and I'm troubled by continuing as is, and it's going to wreck more canon and mythology and take us to places we don't want to be. So that one is not an option. So the next option is what we rest the show and it's not on TV. Well, Doctor Who fans aren't going to really volunteer to take Doctor Who off, because you never know if it's going to come back. Reboot, well, as some people said, a reboot is season 18. A reboot is season 7. We've had reboots before. What do we mean by a reboot? Do we mean change the whole limit, and whatever. So there was an argument about that. And I just thought, well, while there is not a settled theory, a settled kind of feeling about Doctor Who, but we don't want to destroy anymore, why don't we stop, take a pause, grab somebody like Paul McGann and make some of the old stories, and you could take one from Hartnell, Troughton, Pertwee. There were two schools of thought that I said, and then I'll see what you all think. One is I was going to say the best of, and then somebody said, I know, but gosh, can you imagine somebody remaking a classic like Tomb of the Cybermen? No, don't touch it. Then the other version is, okay, then Underworld, the Web Planet, remake them with the budget now, with a Paul McGann Doctor. The Doctor's not given. I mean, if it was Paul McGann, then we've got a problem. But if it was a different actor who's never been a Doctor before, don't give him a number. We don't know which one he is, so we don't know what the link is, and he just does the adventure. And while we're trying to work out whether Doctor Who should continue as it is now, whether we should go in that direction and all the rest of it, we are still getting Doctor Who on TV. And just to kind of finish my argument regarding that, I just wanted to prove as examples, knowing Dan was ready for me. Spare Parts and Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel. Well, that's a kind of remake, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Not really.
Yeah.
I would disagree.
Because it wasn't canon, so it's okay to remake.
Don't you give me that.
Oh, here we go.
You've got Human Nature, Family of Blood, possibly. Then, of course, we've had the Peter Cushing movies, and they were remakes of the two Hartnell Dalek stories, and it didn't make us hate the Hartnell stories. You could argue it made us want to go back and see the full sequence.
Wasn't Bleak like a remake?
So I don't think...
Wasn't there a story in the one and it was about Sally Sparrow or something that evolved into Bleak? I might be getting this wrong.
I don't know. Your mic's really chopping there a bit, though. I couldn't hear some of the words. I mean, look at this. We've got Sherlock Holmes. How many Sherlock Holmes have we had?
Yeah.
Now, he's a great literary character. Does everybody complain because we get a different Sherlock Holmes and does the same story? How many times has Hound of the Baskervilles been done? But nobody moans. Miss Marple.
True.
Get the same old stories. Does anyone moan about remakes of those? Does anyone mourn about remakes of Hercule Poirot? How many deaths on the Nile have there been? Tarzan, another literary character. How many Tarzans? And nobody's mourning about that. And if we go into sci-fi and Marvel franchises, how many Supermen have we had?
Mm.
How many Buck Rogers and Flash Gordons? And so I'm just saying, Dan, to let you have your chance now, isn't a remake a safe possibility?
Okay, you can remake the Curse of Peladon and Monster of Peladon. I'll let you have that one. No, look, I actually, I think you're onto something with McGann. I don't understand why they it would have, like, all this talk about the Hooniverse. I thought the obvious thing would have been to negotiate with all the good Big Finish stories that they've done on audio to make them for TV. And you've got ready-made Doctor Who there. And, you're going to make people like Dwayne happy because we'll finally canonize stuff.
Very funny.
Now, Dwayne, I think you were thinking, you've had a thought about the remakes, haven't you? As an idea.
Yeah, I've thought about that, and I think that I'll say where I voted in the poll, and I said rest it, and bring it back after maybe at least 10 years, if not 15.
I'll be dead
And
then.
for anyone who's come to Doctor Who on since 2005, they've always had it, so they'll be dreading it. But I was there at 1989 when it finished the first time, and we got to 2005. We survived, and some of the best Doctor Who stuff that you will find happened during the 90s, believe it or not. If you go looking for it. But I don't know if I agree with my vote now, because Arrest, if it comes back as it is with the current continuity and whatnot, I think that unlimited regenerations has kind of ruined it for me. Because it takes away the jeopardy of Doctor Who. So we always knew that the Doctor could regenerate 12 times, and that ultimately he was going to come to his end. Okay, so in Matt Smith gets a new regeneration cycle. That's one thing. But then to get unlimited by means of the Timeless Children story, that kind of cheapens it as far as I'm concerned. So I think unless that's taken back and removed or explained in a more satisfactory way, and so that the Doctor's given a finite number of lives, I don't think the jeopardy that we've always had can ever be there again. I think it's gone. So a remake might be a good thing. I don't know if you have to stick so closely to stories that have already been done, but the general idea, like there's been plenty of remakes of things that have failed, but there's also been remakes of things that I think have been extremely successful. I think probably the most successful remake for me personally would be Battlestar Galactica. And that was done very different style to the original series, but they ended up tying it in the pilot. They tied it into the original series. But then it's kind of separate. So all the ideas were there, but they made their own stories. They gender swapped some characters, and it just worked. I think it was probably the best example of a remake of a science fiction show that I've seen. So I know it can be done, and I think Doctor Who could do with that. I think it could do with some revitalizing, but I still think it would need a rest first. Give it 10 years, I reckon.
Yeah, and even the remake. Go on, Doug. You go for it.
No, sorry, I'm just being selfish. In 10 years, I'll be dead. So I get to see it probably. I would like to see it rebooted completely by someone that gives a damn about the show. Forget about all the continuity. Just start fresh with the concept of Doctor Who as being an adventure in time and space, and make it about adventures. Keep it simple. Keep it cheap and cheerful, and write really good stories. I mean, Dwayne, you're absolutely right. They should rest. I'm being selfish. By the time they bring it back, I'll be probably 85 or something. But I think if they do anything, let's just forget about all this stuff that's gone in the last 10 years or so and just reboot it completely with someone that actually has an idea of the show. It doesn't have be a fan of the show because look at Hinchcliffe, look what he did. But someone that understands the show, and I'd be very, very happy. My big fear is that if we do rest it, it won't come back because I don't think enough people, except for us fans, really care. But I guess that's yet to be seen. That's it I had to say. Mic drop.
I voted in that poll, and I said continue, but I was like most of the people that it was like a continue, but so it wasn't continue on the status quo. It was continue, but stuff needs to change, and I think the big thing is it is the show running at the moment. I just don't think that the people in charge are hungry enough. I don't think there's enough at stake, and it's not original. I think Doctor Who's always proven that it's got the capability to reboot on the fly, so to speak, without, I don't think it needs to be put into hiatus for, indefinite periods. I just think you need to hand the torch on. You need to hand over the baton and walk away and let other people have a go at it. And that's what's not happened. You've had the same people in charge of it for 20 years.
My concern has got, and if you saw my stream the other night, I was saying I am getting a bit. I take also what Dwayne says, that the loss of jeopardy of all these regenerations. There's one issue. I think I even said on Tuesday night. I was talking, spontaneously and about it. I wonder whether we need a patch. No continuity at all. You don't know the Doctor's number. Even starting without a companion. And I don't mean suddenly after 2 scenes he bumps into a 19-year-old girl. I mean, leave him alone for one story completely. Establish him. We don't know his number. We don't even know he's a Time Lord. He never mentions Gallifrey. He's wandering in space. He just get on with it. And almost new to him, just a new to Doctor, unnumbered, who's out there in the stars, and get on with that and have the public going, is this Doctor 20, Doctor 27? Because my concern, as with Dwayne, about the lack of jeopardy now and too many regenerations, I'm concerned at the number of Doctors, and that's nobody's fault. It's just time. It's an old show. But I do think, will it feel the same when we have Doctor 27, Doctor 62? They're going to sound like boats on a boating lake that you call in. It's like, your time is up. And I also think I'm sick to death of the regeneration effect being the same. It's been the same for 20 years. And I think don't show us a regeneration. We coped with the gaps. We've coped with it. And it was nice when Moffat tidied it up for McGann and Night of the Doctor and that. But can we just get back to, do we like him as a Doctor? Is he a hero? Do we like the adventure? And then gradually add some of the baggage later. Like I said in my preface, let him travel light.
Well said.
Can I cite an example of a successful continuation where all hope was lost? I mean, I watched the first 2 seasons of Picard and talk about destroying a show.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go back for season 3. I just thought, man, you've trashed this. Like, I
haven't been able to watch past season 1.
Yeah. I mean, I told
3.
Dad, don't watch it. Whatever you do, he hadn't seen season 1 and 2. And after I saw season 3, I said, okay, just watch season 3.
Yeah, skip 1 and 2, straight to 3. It's brilliant. It's really good.
That's a good point, though, Dan. That's a good point.
3 was an excellent retrieval. It showed what a new showrunner will do.
Someone that knew his stuff, Perfect.
Now, I don't know this because I haven't listened to enough Big Finish, but Major Gill says the Night of the Doctor proves that all of the Big Finish and BBC radio stories are now canon. I don't know. I know he.
Well, it's because McGann references Big Finish created companions in his speech.
Yeah, it does.
Which isn't illegal.
Dan knows that. He's just trying to be a bit difficult.
But
I just want to see it made. Like, you got all this cool stuff. Just do a 56 episode run.
Dan, help us out though, Dan. I mean,
we're making that stupid war between the land and the sea. Like, why are we making spin-offs of
I know,
things we don't know anything about? And why wasn't that a Doctor Who episode?
But isn't it? And good point. But because the budget's there. But he's obsessed with spin-offs at the moment. It's this Whoniverse thing, isn't it? And yeah, add the two together, you could have had a 13 episode season like we did with his original run. But I was just thinking, you know, when you, as a Doctor Who fan, you think, oh, I'd like it if they brought the Sea Devils back before they've ruined them. I mean, go back a few years. Oh, I'd love the Sea Devils back. Oh God, remember the 70s? The Cybermen hadn't been on for 7 years. The Daleks had been missing for ages, and you look forward to them maybe coming back. That's it's not a remake, but what I'm saying is we like to revisit. And if you're happy to revisit old monsters, and half the time it devalues them and wrecks them because the original is the best. You know, Genesis of the Daleks is clearly better than Destiny of the Daleks. Whether the Davros actor changes or the mask is degenerated, it doesn't matter. It's a different story. And so, but we as fans wanted it to be revisited, and that we got what we got. So how far are we jumping, Dan, to say, well, a remake is just saying, let's look at some of the old favorites or some of the embarrassment. Let's make the Space Museum in 2024, you know? What's the damage there?
Look, you could remake it. The issue is, though, remaking it, if the production team has a problem with the leadership, remaking it or rebooting it isn't going to work. The issue here is we're trying to fix a problem with the show, and you could do any of those options really. But if there's a problem with the leadership and the show running, it's not going to work. And that's what Picard season 3 proved, is that you get the right people in there.
Yeah.
And
but what was it that made Picard so good? Because you're getting all the old gang back together, like you can't. That you're saying that as a continuation, but it can't just keep going because all those actors are getting older. You know, it's got to end sometime.
The show, it did. It was really a rounding off. But it basically, because I mean, look at the stuff that they did. Some terrible things to Picard in those first 2 seasons, and just did all sorts of damage to the show. But it was amazing how quickly you just let all of that go when you get into season 3 and it's actually good. And that's what I feel like with Doctor Who. If you put a line in the sand and moved on and actually did a good job, it's like Tom Baker, or it's like all the eras through the classic series. It's not one big era. You've literally got new reboots as you go.
Well, John Euden,
exactly
I wanted
right.
to bring up here. Yeah, John Euden, good to see you. You need to ignore the numbering. Sam, yeah, we agree there. And just call them the Doctor. The numbering has been messed up due to the Timeless Children. Now, look, if you're going to be the new showrunner, whatever you're going to do, remakes or go forward or whatever, somebody has to sit down and go, look, there is an issue here that I think we devalue in every new Doctor. I mean, can you imagine being the actor who is the 20th Doctor? You're not going to have the gravitas as being, the second or the... it's happened so many times, it becomes almost a party trick. So take the number away, and we've got all the stuff about... I mean, can anyone tell me now who is the fugitive Doctor? Is she between 2 and 3?
I don't care.
And all that fuss. We don't care, but the thing is, because all the Doctors are numbered in chronological order, we're all wondering. And the point is, if a good showrunner could take the numbers away overnight, some fans will freak out, but then they'll go, but it's good telling, so I can cope with it.
Exactly.
And that would kill off the Timeless Children nonsense as well.
And look, actually, Strange New Worlds is probably like that, because I have an appreciation of Star Trek, but I wouldn't call myself a Trekkie. My dad would be a Trekkie, but a lot of the continuity was lost on me. Where there's lots of references in Strange New Worlds to TOS. And I know this is controversial to Trekkies, but for me, I consider myself a normie. I was enjoying Strange New Worlds because, well, I just enjoyed it. So I liked it. I didn't get all the continuity ripoffs and issues that TOS fans had. But I understand that there's some problems there for TOS fans.
Well, are we saying something radical, or are we saying something that would actually bail out Doctor Who and actually bail out RTD if he continued? Because he's not moving, like Lee Smith says. I mean, trying to get him off the Doctor Who hull is like a barnacle at the moment. David Hardin here says, ironically, RTD did it right the first time. In order to not overload new viewers with classic references, he kept it to a minimum, and he doled it out with an eyedropper only as necessary. Yeah, it was a clever phrase, wasn't it? At the time, war. He just dismissed it. Why are we getting bogged down? I was actually quite shocked when he decided to bring Sutek back. I won't get bogged into all that, but why? The toy man. Why?
It was weird. It was strange. It was weird, and you can see. So he brought it back, but he also obviously had all these things like, we're going to bring him back, but he basically removed all references to Egyptology because that would be appropriation, and just disconnected it all from the previous story, and then put the reference on the, like, to visibly show a Tom Baker episode imposed on screen. It's just, that was the weirdest thing.
There's too much wrapping up in knots out there. I do find this, Dwayne. I mean, I like I said, you're much better on the Big Finish. Do they wrap you up in all the canon, and did they get you twisting and pulling backwards and doing somersaults with your logic?
No, but oftentimes they will take something that's a little bit confusing on the television and make sense of it. So they've got a Fugitive Doctor box set coming out in about 2 months. Where actually there is a episode coming out in November featuring the Fugitive Doctor. So that'll be her first appearance on Big Finish. So curious to see what they do. It's not really a range I'm overly interested in because I'm not invested in that era at all. But they often do much better stories than the TV ever does for some strange reason. I don't know why that is, but it's bizarre how that happens.
Now, I am shooting from ignorance here. What is the difference between TV Doctor Who at the moment and Big Finish Doctor Who? Do they do the DEI?
It's better.
Do they do the progressive stuff? What is
sometimes?
Sometimes, but like
sometimes, but not to the intensity that the TV series does, because they've got a lot more output, so they can sort of hide it in amongst a lot of things. But it generally no. The DEI is mostly goes in behind the scenes. So they make sure they cast certain people, and they cast people who are from that country, that kind of thing. You know, they don't actually necessarily put it so much into the stories. So you're not feeling bashed over the head by it a lot of the time. Sometimes you are, but not all the time.
I mean, I was just thinking this morning about what am I creating problems for this, that, and the other? Because I was thinking, when I read H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, and when you watch the movie version, 60s or the one with the Eurozzy, it doesn't. Yeah, Guy Pearce. It's not about. I mean, it's clearly all about the Victorian class system, but H.G. Wells hardly says a line about it. It's all for you to find out. The Morlocks and the Eloi, you have to work it out. It's a great story. It's an adventure. And if you want to really sit back and pore over it, you can see it's about the class system. But he doesn't, in the middle of the Time Machine, suddenly go, do you know what? What is disgusting is the way the poor are treated by the rich. And you get a big message. And I have to say, isn't that lazy writing? To actually write a sci-fi concept, a hypothesis, a what if, and make it interesting and clever. I mean, you read chapter 1 of Blooming Time Machine, it is very, very kind of highfalutin. I had to work out, was the little time machine in front of him and all the rest of it. But you have to work it out. Nobody at any point is preaching to you. He has actually kind of put his message, and he did have a political message within the whole adventure. but not once did he say, screeching of brakes, I need to shout at you now. And I just think when you see writers do it on the TV now, that's lazy and shortcut because they cannot be asked to integrate it fully into a narrative that does the actual preaching anyway. They just can't be bothered to do it. And that's just laziness. And maybe that's why RTD has written too many of season 1 and 2. Just less. You must have ideas, just less. Have a good writer's room around you and spend more time doing the layering of the stories, RTD, a bit like HG1. That's the problem.
I've just thought of how to set the remake.
Go on.
You set the remake in a contemporary funeral parlor, right? So and you're looking at it from the point of view of the funeral director, and so this stranger comes in with a casket. They want to do something with the caskets, the Hand of Omega, and it starts from there because we've got all that stuff that we're about to see on the Blu-ray that from Remembrance of the Daleks, with the Doctor was there at the time doing things while Susan was going to school. What was he up to? So we could start the remake from there, and I think that would be a fascinating way to start the story myself. But make it all contemporary. Start it from a contemporary point and then go on from there.
I'd watch that.
And you could loosely base some stories on the original series or the classic series, but doesn't necessarily have to be. But I think that would be a good starting point.
So you've mentioned the starting point, Dwayne, is your temptation, that since we're just talking about this, is your temptation to say, obviously just stop where we roughly are now and just remake the whole essence of Doctor Who from scratch again in a different direction?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think because you're going more specific, you're going remake specific stories, but I'm a bit more broad than that in my view. I think it could be remade from scratch. I think
so.
Yeah, because I was thinking of a safe version. You can still get your Doctor Who on TV. I can buy into a remake. I think if we really took our geekness out of us, every Doctor Who fan seemed to be triggered about, how can you touch Doctor Who? You can't do that. You can't do that. Well, hold on. Do you know what I loved? Mark Gatiss is An Adventure in Time and Space. Yeah. And one of the things I loved about it was, when they showed you a few seconds of the 10th planet remade. I have no problem. And I'm going to, if it's sacrilege, it's sacrilege. It's just my honest opinion. I loved the fact that they did the first regeneration again, and it's been blended in some YouTube clips. And wasn't it blended in the Capaldi last story anyway? That you got a touch of, and oh God, I'll say it out loud so it's there forever. But I wasn't troubled by that at all. I thought it enhanced it.
I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it. Sometimes we can be too precious, I think, about this show. It needs to go back to a mainstream popularity, and I think a lot of Brendan's ideas would actually attract a lot of mainstream viewers, and I think that's the only way it's going to survive.
Yeah, they've got to. I mean, I know we always say ignore the fans, no fan fiction, but they really have to back away from it. And maybe you shouldn't have a Doctor Who fan at the moment running it.
Exactly.
You should have somebody who's a TV writer, knows their stuff, and actually has that critical questioning, which is, wouldn't it be great if a new showrunner sat down and said, why is Doctor Who so popular? I've never got it. And actually they have to do some dismantling to kind of work out televisually why it worked. And then they'll go, right, okay. Because I think there's a laziness and shorthand going on. I mean, if I'm going to write a story about Doctor Who because I've just got the gig and I happen to mention a Cyberman, even if they're not in the story, it's shorthand, it's laziness in many ways because you're doing little cheats everywhere. Build a brand new world on your Todd, on your own, with no reliance on any canon. Go on then, I dare you, RTD. The universe is a big space. Well, it's not. There's one planet with a woman with a spoon because the Flux has killed it all. How many times has the universe been killed? Flux killed the universe, and then Sutek killed the universe, and then there was a woman with a spoon. I'm worried about the universe. Maybe there's no adventures left.
Yeah, the stakes have always been way too high, and the jeopardy's now gone. So through this discussion, I think I've convinced myself that there's no redeeming Doctor Who.
Yeah, we should just reboot.
be
It's
remade, Dan.
all over.
If Big Finish is not
time.
canon, then Doctor Who definitely needs remaking.
Lads, am I getting my own script on here? Because every Friday I say, let's do a detox. And normally near the end of the show, you all say, oh, I'm a bit down in the dumps now. I mean,
I'm depressed.
I'm not down in the dumps at all. I think it would be good. I think it would be exciting, actually. I'm not in the dumps.
Yeah, but
at all.
I'm with it, but I just don't want the current team to do it.
No, get rid of them. Oh, you can't.
I want anyone but these guys to do it.
That's why it needs a good rest. So the current team is long gone.
Well, they've been doing it 20 years. Surely they could give it up. I mean, geez.
No.
I think the honest truth was, I can't believe. Remember, RTD was offered the specials. That was what they said. Can we get RTD back for the specials? And then when they were in that meeting, with enthusiasm and everything, it spilled into, I've got lots of ideas for further, and the barnacle was back on the bus. And this is it. He didn't. He said in the writer's tale he was knackered. And I yeah, too right. You bust a gut. Those first 4 seasons just about were intact. There were only 1 or 2 absolute stinkers. But you righted Doctor Who. You made it trendy. You got it back. And you know that's something that can't be taken away from RTD. That was a hell of a task, because it was a laughing stock. People took the mick. Their last memories of it, apart from the movie, was 80s TV, and it went a bit panto in parts. That was the casual viewer's memory. And so he did a brilliant job to make it sexy, to make it modern, to make it got a contemporary vibe. And he was knackered. And that's allowed. But then to come back, and Wild Blue Yonder seemed to be, I'm trying to do midnight, but there's a hole in the plot. The giggle was, let's go down nostalgia lane and bust everything to death. He hasn't got any ideas, and in a way, it's not a criticism. I don't expect him to have any ideas, because he had used them all up.
Correct. Correct.
So
that's the thing that's upset me the most, I think, about the last 2 years, is that I was really optimistic about RTD coming back.
Yeah.
I thought we were about to get, get some more great Doctor Who. I assumed that he'd be tapping into all the people that he had the first time around. Instead, he's kind of gone it alone, with the exception of Moffat.
Yeah.
But I didn't want his legacy tarnished. But the state he's leaving the show in, if it does get cancelled at the end of season 2 or 3, it's pretty sad if that's what ends up happening. And I genuinely think it's because they didn't let it go. Like, the BBC needed to give it to the next generation. There should be, given the show's 20 years old, there should be people in professional circles in production that should be able to, carry the mantle forward right now.
Well, did you know one of the script editors came directly from Big Finish and worked with RTD on this most recent season? He should have been the one to be overseeing it, because his work on Big Finish has been absolutely brilliant, has Scott Hancock, but I've just not seen it reflected in the television series at all.
Yeah, and there's 2 more names here from Raymond Williams. Thank you. Toby Whitehouse, of course, being human. I mean, the BBC don't give him the gig with Doctor Who, and he goes and does his own thing. And how successful was that? James Strong. How many times are people on my stream quoting the Post Office? Sean's one of them. The Post Office was such a big dramatic hit. James Strong. Those guys would make it far more successful than it is today. Yeah, Toby Whitehouse, I keep thinking what a missed opportunity that was. And as you said, Dwayne, RTD is still the boss, isn't he? So even when he's been drafted in, that lad from Big Finish, you just wonder how much can he impact and change things. I don't see signs of layering of lots of redrafts, as in the writer's tale used to do, where you could see there was the green script, the blue script, and the yellow script, and they were changing it all the time. I don't get any here. I don't hear any of that now. Do you?
But
No.
how many things have we all seen as fans and gone almost universally? We've gone, oh, that was a bad idea. That like with the suit tech and things and then you see RTD just sort of dropping on that Unleashed show. He's sitting there just through his commentaries, talking through his ideas and brain farts, and you're thinking, oh shit, that is coming from him, and everyone's sitting around him is in silence and not saying anything.
They're afraid to say no,
I'm
aren't they?
amazed.
They're
Go on.
afraid to say no. Well, they're afraid to say no. He's already admitted several times that most of his scripts are first drafts, and that's as far as they go. I mean, he's too powerful.
I'm amazed, though, that a writer of his quality exposes himself to going on Unleashed. So whatever script he's written has just been produced expensively, streamed across the world. There it is. And then in the Unleashed episode, or even the commentaries, he suddenly says, do you know what? There's a thought there that the by generations means none of the doctors have died. And they all look at him going, wow, I never thought of that. Why? If you're a writer of top quality, if it is a narrative that you want to seed, it's in the script. If it's not worth comment and it's not actually doesn't count, it's not mentioned. If you're saying I've left some stuff out and it was a half thought, that is again thrown into my shorthand, lazy, rushed process, because a good writer drafts it, thinks about the concept, thinks about this, thinks about that, layers it with message if you need it and all the rest of it. You don't then suddenly, when it's been put on telly and a few months later go, this could have meant this. No. Now, whether he's just triggering us and playing around, but I think that's a bit dangerous for him. And to be honest, if RTD just gagged himself and didn't do any Unleashed and commentaries, I know the fans would hate it in a way because we like the gossip. It might help his situation, because if he landed Dot and Bubble but without all the stuff behind the scenes, if he landed Destination Scarrow without that speech about Davros, I think less is more in this case. He over-explains, but he doesn't over-explain in the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he put the audience down as well. In Dot and Bubble, he said that, well, we put that in there. If you didn't notice there's something wrong with you, that's kind of what he intimated, and that's not very nice to a large portion of the fan base.
It's also like pretty lame, because if you can rewatch that and even knowing that it's coming, you just sit there and go, no, mate, it just wasn't well written. It wasn't, it felt tacked on. It wasn't,
because
you could chop the end off and it wouldn't matter.
It was tacked on.
Yeah, it was tacked on.
Yeah.
But there's nothing clever, I'm sorry, about that Dot and Bubble ending, because I know he's got a Welsh he's got a Welsh BAFTA shooty for his Doctor Who performance in 6 episodes.
Come on.
Well, it's a Welsh BAFTA, and that means there's only about 6 or 7 dramas that they can quote. So basically, it's a very small fish pool, so to speak. So he's always going to be in the running. Doctor Who's always going to be in the running with BBC Wales. So basically,
true, yeah.
What other juggernaut show is being made by Wales? So basically, it is
like the Tassie Film Awards,
something like that. But I dare say they cited the end of Dot and Bubble as an example of the acting. But beyond the acting, the RTD script, it was an add-on. And the other thing is, it made no logical sense.
No.
That the Doctor was going to help white supremacists colonize a brand new planet. I thought the progressives were anti-colonization, anti-white supremacists. I mean, listen to them all at the moment about the presidential election, and what they're waffling on about. If you listen to all this stuff, why the hell did he write a story in 2024 where we reward them and we give them a brand new planet to spoil? I didn't understand that at all. And any writer worth his salt would have thought, well, I'm very proud of that racial message at the end, which ended.
Yeah, but Brendan, He also broke his own rules, which I actually think were fantastic rules that he had in 2005 about presenting. And, it was the core tenet of Star Trek, was present an optimistic future.
Mm.
He literally did a story about the future, basically saying all of these prejudices that I would argue we've gotten a long way ahead of that in the last 30 years, 40 years, are still going to be a thing, off in the future. So what you're saying is we're not going to progress.
Mm.
No, because as the threader said, I mean, I called him in one of my famous trailers. I said, he's the destroyer of canon. He's the new toy maker. I mean, I find it really funny, and sometimes it's always in the subconscious. I know, having taught kids all the time when they're writing, that there's a lot from the subconscious that suddenly ekes out that you have to be aware of. As you know, teachers have to keep an eye on their kids' work because it sometimes says other things they're projecting. And I find RTD is projecting. It's just too obvious. That he is the toy maker. He is the Time Lord Victorious. He is the kingpin of Doctor Who now. And he, like every toy, I tell you what, Barusa only had a few character options in the 5 Doctors. He only had a few. The whole 61-year set RTD's got. Can you imagine the size of that room he's got now with all the character options? He's going, right, I'm going to bring him back, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that. And Captain Jack was very naughty in real life, so what I'm going to do is that, and then do that. Oh, he's just living it up. And he's almost so above the program that actually it's a bit of a pain to write the program. He's just the script. He's like the nesting consciousness. He's like, what, up there, the great intelligence. Remember that stream I did? He's right up there. And he just can't be bothered. Once he's got the great idea, he then throws, or somebody said in the thread, he farts out a script. And that's it. And he leaves a bad smell for the rest of us.
We could be playing the game of Rassilon at this very moment.
I think we might be.
He's trying to be the Barusa of
he's Barusa
of Doctor Who television production. Seeking his own immortality as the one and only true creator. But we all know what happened to Barusa, don't we?
We do, and it's going to happen to us. Toss in time turds. Lee Smith just loved it when I said that once. Yes, like Sutek. Toss in time turds. RTD is the sex toy maker. No, do you know what? I start these programs all the time. I don't actually want to necessarily. I'm not even gunning for RTD, but the obvious is the obvious. It is game over. I was quite shocked. My poll didn't have 20 million in it, and it wasn't the size of the American election. However, not one person said continue. It's fine. I'm trying to get people on this street, on this channel, to say why they loved season 1. But when you get down to talking to them, and they're open to talking about it, they kind of say, "Well, it was all right." The best compliment I've heard for season 1 is it was all right. That nobody says it. They just said it didn't trigger me as much as it has you, Brendan. But they just said it was all right.
Oh, the most complimentary that I've heard anyone talk about was Dwayne on your stream the other night with on Sirens of Audio, where you guys were talking.
What did I say?
No, it wasn't what you said. It was, I think it was Phil and the others that were actually positive. I mean, Dan's pretty positive about Dan Hadley's pretty positive about the series as well. Like, you take the rough with the smooth kind of thing. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but there are things that I think there are things that we liked about the season. I'll admit, I was happy. I was really happy about the first half of the finale, and then boy, did that go downhill badly.
It's just.
I'll tell you something interesting though. We were talking before, and I was saying what kind of work I was in. I was working with a client on the weekend, and we were traveling in my car, and we got back in the car after a stop, and I'd been doing some research for a podcast. So I was listening to a Big Finish audio, and it came on automatically in the car. It was Dalek screeching. And she said, "Oh, you like Doctor Who?" And she ended up telling me how much she enjoyed the latest season on Disney. She said, "Oh, I couldn't wait to put it on every week. It was
Whoa.
fantastic."
Wow.
And I'm sitting there going,
Oh, what?
this is the very first time I've ever heard someone talk like that about this season. And she absolutely loved it. She said, "Oh, that Dot and Bubble was fantastic." And yeah, she said, "Oh, I can't wait for series 2. Is there a series 2 coming out?" I said, "Yeah." I was thinking, yeah, unfortunately, but I said, "Yeah, it's coming out next year." I was quite shocked, but there are people out there who love it.
They are, but I always try and find out what they, it's not to have a go at them. I just want to please explain, please. I know I'm quoting a famous politician over there. Please explain. But, just explain to me, please, because I don't quite get it. And there's me, a Doctor Who fan, and I do try and be objective when I look at things. But, Dot and Bubble, if you're saying, Dwayne, Dot and Bubble, if I look at that story, I thought it was too light. If you want to scare people, it was daytime. The slugs were very slow. They were well done, but they were slow. You're trying to sympathize, because surely you sympathize with people who are being killed, with white supremacists and ageist, nasty pieces of work. I didn't like any of them. I liked that bloke, the one who died, because he was more of a hero, wasn't he, at the end? Forgotten his name.
Ricky September.
That's it, yeah. But apart from that, that whole story was nothing. And it also made no sense that all the time that Millie and the Doctor were talking to them on the screen, that they were surrounded by all those white people who didn't say, "Hey, that geezer's black, let's get rid of him because we're white supremacists." All the time they allowed him just to stand there, but only at the end did everyone get angry. Away. It made no sense, that story, but I do understand that some people who say they liked season 1 just like TV that's light touch, that doesn't do detail and gets bogged down. I noticed it in teaching. There's a superficiality. They're like a flavor of a program. They're just like its vibe, and not necessarily when you look at it whether it works. I'm trying not to criticize people who love season 1, but I do think people kind of dip in and out and go, no, I thought that was fine.
But the other thing was interesting about that client of mine is that we had her. We also had her sister in the car with me, and we had her kids in the car. She had a 16-year-old daughter. She had a 12-year-old son. So there were 3 other people in the car along with me. And she was the only one who was enthusing about it. Her older sister was going, "Oh, you like that, do you?" And she was, a bit confused about it. And the kids were almost embarrassed about their mother talking about how much she liked Doctor Who, because I think she, being in her 30s, I think she was in her mid-30s, she'd got into Doctor Who with her parents back when it came back in 2005.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a nostalgia thing for her as well, to be watching new episodes of Doctor Who. It was probably reminding her of that time. But her kids weren't watching it. So I'll tell you that much. The 16-year-old and the 12-year-old were not into it at all.
Yeah, well, we've definitely come full circle because, being a Doctor Who fan before 2005. What's that, sorry?
Better tell Dexeter we've come full circle.
Oh, well, there you go.
Show off.
The quest is the quest. The quest is the quest.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're late at night there. That was well done, Dwayne. That was.
Sorry, I lost your train of thought.
I understand now, you know that.
No, you're right.
The
We come full circle. It's like I'm embarrassed to be a Doctor Who fan all over again. Whereas in the early 2000s, it was actually kind of cool. Now,
yeah, well, when the show was rebooted, it was, I have my nieces and nephews, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is really cool." My niece had Matt Smith on the wall, and you could talk about it at work, and people actually knew what was going on, and everyone was following it. And then that right up until sort of Jodie, that's when it fizzed in the sort of public consciousness. And it was kind of like after Jodie came in, there was very much we're out. And then recently, like in the last few years, it's turned back into exactly what it was. It's kind of got that cult status.
Yeah.
You kind of fringe if you say that you like it, and like, really, you still like that? and that's sad.
I've tried all the time, and I know it's got to be anecdotal from all your lives, but like Dwayne had from his, that when RTD says we're pleased with the 18 to 35 audience figures, and Disney, my understanding from one of your podcasts over there that Dwayne knows about 42 to Doom, what's it called? 42 to
42 to Doomsday, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, talking about Disney insiders and stuff like that, that they're not worried about the figures per se, but they've grabbed their audience of that age group. I'm stunned that they're happy with. Sorry, forget that they're happy. I'm stunned that the youngsters are grabbed by it. Because I can't see where. Like I said, I won't repeat, but that idea that there's a vibe and it has the right messaging. But apart from that, I can't see good stories or characters I'm interested in. I don't know. Is anyone seeing people?
I don't think that it is grabbing the kids, and I think the people that are subscribing into Disney are actually older.
Yeah, you're right.
And I suspect that's why they're not staying as well, because there wasn't much to hold you. I got 3 months for the price of one.
Yeah.
And the minute that the 3 months was up, it basically that aligned with the church on Ruby Road after the 60th. So I kind of had the 60th and church on Ruby Road, and the minute it was over, I dropped it, and then I just picked it back up for the season later in the year, because it was another 6 months later before the season dropped.
So, I mean, if you were Disney, is it a worry if that's true that people dropped out, but they'll be back again when? Well, you hope they'll be back for season 2. People. I mean,
they'd have made more money out of me by selling me the box sets and stuff.
But program makers don't seem too bothered about binge watching, for example, and that kind of bastardizes all your dramatic juices, because you've tried to kind of layer and structure a season, and people might binge watch a night. People don't seem to care for that in program making. So why are they so bothered about whether you subscribe, then you're not retained for a while, but hopefully season 2, you'll be back again and do the same trick? I mean, yes, in a perfect world, people subscribe to your channel and suddenly find that all your content is amazing, but they've got the money shot, and now it's kind of, I don't know, is this a big deal? Or, I mean, Disney can cope with it. I mean, does it mean it's a mismatch, Disney and Doctor Who, because the people who seem to want to watch Doctor Who don't like any of the other Disney content? I don't know. What your thoughts?
If you had what you guys have on the iView for Doctor Who on Disney Plus, I probably would have maintained this subscription just for convenience, because it was really convenient having Doctor Who fully available on Netflix up until they pulled it.
Yeah.
And I kept Stan for a long time when they took it off Netflix, and it was on Stan, which is one of our streamers.
I kept BritBox when the classic series was on.
Yes, I was about to say same here. Yeah, I love that.
I used to complain to BritBox though about.
Yeah.
I used to complain to BritBox about the quality of their. It used to buffer a lot. It got better, but it took.
As far as Disney goes, I think one of the problems is that they don't have the range that other streamers do, like Prime. And I mean, Prime's not probably the best example, but Netflix in particular, they've got a broad range of things that everyone in the family can enjoy. So I will stay signed up to Netflix because there's stuff on there that I watch. There's stuff on there that my kids watch. I've got control over what the kids watch. Whereas on Disney, unless you're into Marvel, Star Wars, some documentaries, some old, like the Muppets or something, that there isn't really a great deal on Disney. Plus, you've got the Disney movies, but that's it. So the range isn't there to sustain like a permanent subscription. I don't think I've found I had a few different streaming services running, but my kids would always gravitate to a certain one, and it's the one my kids gravitate to that I tend to keep, because like Disney is used by a lot of parents for Bluey, put their kids in front of Bluey all the time. My kids are a bit older than that, and we get Bluey on other services anyway here, so that's not going to keep me on Disney, that's for sure.
I mean, I'm just thinking, have Disney missed a trick or not been allowed a trick, which is, okay, I've liked season 1. I'm pretending I'm one of these people. I've liked season 1 and I've subscribed to Disney Plus, and now I want more. And you've got the whole back catalogue of Doctor Who. Oh no, you don't.
Or at least the new series from 2005, you would have thought.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
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 Isn't
There's just
that
not enough there to keep anyone
maybe-
entertained when
and
it comes
maybe
to
the-
Doctor Who.
maybe that's where Disney and BBC need to do some serious negotiating, because I think if Disney are saying figures we're not too bothered about, but we were just bothered about the retention dropping and people dropping out. You said about 30% remained, didn't you? Said Dwayne, that you overheard.
Well, the guys on 42 to Doomsday, so look them up. 42
Yeah.
to Doomsday podcast.
Yep.
It's a great episode actually, because they're talking a lot more about merchandise than anything else. The Disney part was only a small part of that show, because they've got a collectible store owner on there talking about merchandise. But yeah, he said they were hoping for an 80% retention on new subscribers, when in actual fact they only got a 30%. So it's quite a low figure in comparison to what they expected.
So that leads into Disney. If that is a concern, it sounds as though it is. The BBC and Disney need to come to some arrangement that there needs to be more content available for people who have enjoyed season 1 to be able to enjoy some version of a back catalogue. Because, I mean, what's the point of saying subscribe to Disney because there's 8 episodes of Doctor Who? It's not much.
No.
And then if you're happy with that, there's nothing else. You surely need more to keep them there. Now, that puts the BBC in a slightly stronger position regarding negotiating, but get negotiating, because, I would have thought these media, agencies do want retention, as you say. They do want to keep their figures going. They do want to slightly, advertise their content furthermore. Stephen Braddock here says, I've heard Disney Plus were happy with number of subscribers at the beginning, then it dropped off. Then subscribers went up at the end for binge watching, then the subscriber numbers fell off a cliff. And this is it, Stephen. They're dipping into those 8 episodes with 2 Dr. Light episodes, but what else?
And they were only watching Doctor Who. They weren't watching anything else. So that's a problem. They're going to, if they're interested in the subscriber numbers, then they're going to have something appealing to the subscribers other than one thing.
Does that logically mean that the BBC Disney Plus matchup isn't helping Disney, because Disney's content, as you said, is Marvel and Mandalorian? It doesn't fit the Doctor Who vibe. So basically it's a mismatch.
It's a bad deal, I think.
No, I think it matches.
Oh, I don't. I think Netflix would have been a better deal. Maybe it wasn't possible for some reason.
Yeah,
I think it probably would have been much better from my perspective. I mean, I don't know too much about it, but someone like Amazon or Netflix would have been better, I would have thought.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
More range for. But I mean, Netflix probably doesn't need the boost in subscriptions, whereas Disney does, I would say.
Yeah.
I think that's where Netflix have been able to be more brutal with negotiations with the actual production houses, because in the beginning they used to commission a lot, but they were also pretty brutal in terms of chopping them off. Even, I mean, there were quite a few. I remember quite a few successful shows that Netflix had that they cut off at the knees at season 3 and left a lot of people upset. But they're in the prime position, like you say. We're all sticking around. I'm sticking around too on Netflix, because there's more stuff that tends to come up on a regular basis that we're going to watch. So it's not just me and my Doctor Who collection.
Is there something we're not seeing here? Because if this is early days of a relationship between Disney and the BBC on Doctor Who's front, and obviously if you are happy with season 1 overall, you're stuck. There's nothing else. But they are now sowing the seeds. They're starting the Sea Devils spin-off. There's 5 episodes. And if it's successful, then maybe they'll give a go-ahead and more money to make that a bit bigger. Is this RTD and Disney saying, right, it's going to take a while, but we're going to build a whole Who-niverse, which might therefore take off, and then there'll be much more content. But in the early doors, you've got 8 episodes and it's quite tight. But they've now got a two-pronged attack. Doctor Who, the main show, and now we've got the Sea Devils spin-off. And he said, didn't he, in the Doctor Who magazine, he's got another secret project, and people are wondering what that is. And of course, RTD will have spin-offs in mind. And so basically, this would feed into the Disney thing, which is more content. But isn't that the trap? I'm not an expert on it, but when you had the Star Wars stuff, some of it tanked, some of it didn't work, and it was too much.
Yeah.
A spin-off only works when
I don't know if Star Wars was too much. I just don't think it worked, did it?
No.
A lot of it.
No.
Just
and they clearly
because
didn't have a
Mandalorian
plan.
was huge when it first started,
Yeah.
and that was massive. That's what got me. Originally people talking about Mandalorian, I hadn't even heard of it, and people were talking about, I better go and check that out.
Andor's good.
I haven't seen Andor because I stopped my subscription before I got to that. But then you get stuff like The Acolyte, which is right.
Acolyte was unwatchable.
I got past episode 1. That was it.
Well, we've got a fan here, Randy. We will gladly plug Sirens of Audio. We do every week, but obviously, yes, I know. Can we have a plug for Sirens of Audio? Of course, and we'll be mentioning his Sylvester and Janet meetup soon. It is one of the best Doctor Who channels and podcasts. It's not flashy, just solid, really brilliant content. Yeah, of course, and that's why I asked.
It's a little bit flashy.
It's
I know.
Very flashy.
Yeah, how very dare you? But yes, we get. Of course, that's why Dwayne's on. That's why I've invited him on. He's a good podcaster. Disney have hinted. This is John Yulden. Disney have hinted that they're going to bring in annual subscriptions, so you will be locked in for a year, so you are unable to cancel when you're.
Bullshit! Not doing that.
Well, I mean, they try and trap you in lots of ways, but surely the best way to trap people is to have great content and variety. That's the best way.
Well, everything is trying to get you in for an annual subscription these days. So whatever you're doing, if you're using a streaming, service like the one we're broadcasting on now, they'll try and sign you up for a year rather than month to month and make it cheaper. So it's just what businesses are doing these days.
I'm trying to think whether you were Disney, Apple, all these, Netflix, and the BBC have to sit there and think, is the deal with Disney the best one? They want to go global. Remember, Jane Tranter and Julie Gardner made a big play of this. They want to go global. But is Disney the streaming service to do that?
No.
Is this the best partnership they could have to go global and do this properly? I just wonder.
It may be the company that was willing to offer the most money for the BBC. Yeah. I don't think practically it is. Obviously Netflix is the one you want to be on, but like Dan said, you probably they've got so much power now in the streaming world. They can probably negotiate much lower, whereas Disney's they're still trying to capture the market.
It's people say also that arguably it was Netflix when Doctor Who was on, New Who was on Netflix. That's what made amplified the Matt Smith era in America. In other words, if it hadn't been on Netflix, it may not have gone as big as it did during that period as well. That was a common view that was held, that actually Netflix
that makes sense,
was helping it more than the other way around. But it's like, because Netflix put a lot of money into the early Star Trek Discovery and the Kurtzman Trek, remember? And then when it started to fail hard, they sort of pulled themselves out of the deal. Because why spend? They're pretty brutal with their models. If it's not making money for them, they'll happily put content up, but they're not going to pay a fortune for it either.
No.
What I was thinking is, because come on, we all have this problem in our houses, don't we? Do you subscribe to Apple? Do you subscribe to Netflix? Do you subscribe to Disney Plus? There are so many out there, and there's others I could list, aren't there? People aren't subscribing to everything, so surely the BBC has to sit at certain points in their bargaining position and go, is Disney the best platform to plant Doctor Who? Because does it have reach? Because if people are just getting subscriptions for a while then leaving, and maybe with a different streaming service, we have. You've got the Doctor Who fans will subscribe, but you've then got that hinterland of all the other people who are there all the time. Surely there's a kind of master plan going, hold on, I don't know if Disney's our best fit, because surely in the end, in this law of the jungle, there are too many streaming services and they're going to be gobbled up, as the usual is the case.
Yeah.
And the BBC have to pick the right one, and maybe Disney's not.
Don't forget, ideologically, Disney's very similar as well with their approach. So that probably had some part to play with it.
Yes, it's a nice fit.
Whereas Netflix is a bit more liberal with both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. I mean, this is an Aussie detox hour. And the thing is, you've gone from ABC to having to subscribe, and all three of you, when you subscribed and paid your money and then watched the season, you'll have felt more cheated, I assume, than if you just watched it free to air on ABC and it was a bit of a duff of a season, but it was free to air.
Very much so.
Well, the other thing is when it was on ABC, it would have been on iView, which is like your iView. It would have been on there free for 6 months after airing on the ABC for free, along with all the other New Who content that was sitting up on iView as well, because a lot of New Who was sitting up on that platform up until the Disney deal. So, but if you're a new, that's what's really missing as well, is that, given that New Who's been going 20 years, it's ridiculous that you've got is those 8 episodes in Ruby Road and the 60th anniversary.
Yep.
If you did happen to be a new person that came across it, you may not even know that there's all this other content out there that you can access. And, it's certainly not available.
But it's so dangerous, isn't it? If you serve a bit of I'll be fair, that season 1 was lukewarm. It didn't shine. And you've paid a subscription. I mean, paying a subscription is so different to free to air, isn't it? Because free to air is you go, oh, well, I watched that season. I don't know if I'd watch the next one. You're not too bothered. It's like, whatever. But when you've paid a subscription and then you are expecting something of quality and it doesn't quite deliver, do you get the subscription the second year? If the only reason you subscribed to Disney was that Doctor Who, that's the worry for Disney, that if season 1 is, would you subscribe again if all those people went from 80% to 30% and dropped out? I mean, the worry is, what's the point? When free to air, a disappointing season, well, let's see what the next one's like. No skin in the game.
But UK viewers have always paid, haven't they?
Well, we have via the tax, yes.
Yeah.
Which is why I kicked off, and a few of the British fans kicked off, because that midnight streaming service, I know the Aussies loved it because it was a better time for you, wasn't it?
It was.
But because they tried to globally make a nice fit when everybody could watch it live, so to speak, I didn't think that the British taxpayers got the best deal. I mean, RTD tried to sex it up by saying, midnight and all the rest of it. No, not really. No, I think the Americans got a great deal. It's 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. whenever it was, they were watching Doctor Who live on a Saturday. Oh, well done. Isn't that what the British taxpayers used to get in the 70s and 80s? Yeah. I wasn't sure. We are still funding this blooming thing, and I didn't see where we got the extra. I didn't. But
No.
But you got it deprived as well. I mean, talk to an Australian about ABC. Although the ABC, I mean, I try and watch some of their programs now on BBC, and I can see the DI and the woke stuff is all over it now like a rash. And yet it used to be so good, ABC. There was some great stuff. You had some great spy dramas a few years ago. Was it The Code? Was that done by ABC? Yeah. The Code?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, all that stuff I still love. But yeah. So We've gone around the houses. I don't know if I've detoxed us. I tell you, I'm getting bad at this. Very bad. I feel as though there's been an awful lot.
I feel a lot cleaner, honestly.
So
I'm
we've
excited about
come
this
full
remake that
circle.
I came up with.
Yeah, we've agreed we're going to remake it all.
Yeah, Shooty's had a lot of mentioning tonight. I know, yeah. Mind you, he's a cheer up. You know, there you go. He arrived. There you go. There he is.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a nice cheer up. And I saw Remembrance of the Daleks was mentioned by somebody saying that's how to do it. But very nice. Very nice.
When's the Blu-ray out? I had it on pre-order,
Well,
so for
John
so long I've
Whedon-
forgotten when it's coming.
John Yulden has been texting today. John Yulden has been saying in the thread that I think he's waiting for a dispatch to happen today, then you don't.
I got an email 2 days ago saying that mine was on the way.
Oh, mine should be on the way then.
I should have it in a couple. I should have it in time for Sylvester.
Maybe you'll get it earlier in Tasmania.
And a nice segue
right.
because it's all set up. But of course, I don't know. Have you got any seats left for this this event of yours, Dwayne? Now,
in some of the cities, Melbourne and Sydney are going pretty well, but Brisbane, Adelaide, and I'm not sure of the size of the venue in Adelaide, where numbers are sort of climbing upwards too. But Hobart as well. So all the Tassie fans, this is your chance to see Sylvester for the last time in Australia. So come on down and see him in Hobart. That's beautiful there. So and Janet, of course, in Melbourne and Adelaide at this stage. Don't know if she'll join us in any of the others, but she could join us in Sydney. Not sure. Depends how many people turn up there. Lots of people still buying tickets. So events.sirensofaudio.com will take you directly to the events page.
I'm looking forward to the Sydney one.
Yeah, and he's on good. He'll be on good form, and he does give his money's worth. And I've not seen Janet on a panel, but I can see no why, because when I see her on all the DVDs and Blu-rays and that, she gives as good as she gets, and she's always forthright, which is good. That's what you pay for. So that's a good package, that, Dwayne, because they give a lot,
and they do have a Doctor Who history together. Keep in mind. Did you know that, Brendan?
Go on, remind me.
Well, Janet did the screen test for Sylvester.
Oh,
with him.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. She was really scary in that.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, she was a trusted aunt. Yeah, well remembered, Dwayne. And you lot are all at midnight. There's me. I should have remembered that from. It's one of the extras, isn't it? In one of the packs. So, final thoughts. Mr. Puzzled, good to see you. Biggest mistake, making Doctor Who Disney Plus only. Not one Aussie fan was happy. Even the ABC was peed off. I made an actual statement, but still play everything. I know the BBC and ABC are like cousins, and obviously slap in the face. Bye-bye. We don't, no loyalty anymore.
The only thing I was a little bit happy about with it going to Disney was that I was going to be able to watch it in 4K off the service, because iView isn't 4K and you have to wait for the TV streaming to actually see.
iView was standard definition, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really rough.
Was it standard or just basic HD?
I think it was starting to go HD in recent years, but yeah, it used to be pretty bad that you'd be like watching pixelated. It was amazing when you get the Blu-rays how much detail you lost through the streaming services.
Well, we've certainly detoxed now. Boomer Doug, I'm going to ask you first. On your channel, is there anything coming up at the moment?
I'm just working on one now. My partner and I, my partner told me she'd never seen the movie Ghost, so we watched it today, and I'm just going to do a video on it. It still holds up incredibly well. I had a few man tears. It's a good movie.
Getting a potting wheel.
Yeah. So
I was going to say, make a vase.
Yeah,
make a vase.
Yeah, I've got one somewhere.
Bit of pottery. So Boomer Doug 4242. There's his YouTube channel.
Come
and I know we've obviously mentioned. Yeah, subscribe. And on Sirens of Audio, are you managing to still get a few programs in while you're getting ready for Sylvester and Janet? Yeah.
Yeah, this weekend we're doing something unusual. So on Saturday in the UK, Saturday morning, an episode will drop. We're going to be speaking with Sean Longmore, who is a cover artist for Big Finish. So talking about the visuals behind audio. So that'll be interesting too. So he's done some great covers in the very few years that he's been there. So yeah, it was a great chat we had, and we'll share that on the weekend.
Well, that's good. And you know, when I had Daryl Joyce on recently, and I had Colin Howard on as well, who did a lot of the VHS covers. And it's great to talk to illustrators. I really do like to hear what their angle is, because they're having, in one visual, having to somehow summarize what they think are the priorities. And yeah, it's very interesting what they do. And actually on Sunday with my Monsters special for Halloween, I've got Neil Cole on, you know, the Sci-Fi Museum. He's on. We're going to see the Scarrison, everybody. He's got the original Scarrison. Now, obviously, over the years, you know, it's decayed, but as you know, he restores. If you go to the museum, you'll see the Davros, the original Davros mask, and how he's built it back up again. But if you want to tune in Sunday night at 6 p.m., he has the Scarrison with him that he is now live restoring. It's not finished, but you'll see the Scarrison from Terror of the Zygons. There's one thing. I think you might see the Garm, actually, Dwayne. I think the Garm is one of our video little snippets. So, yeah, tune into Sirens of Audio. That looks as though that's a good discussion with illustrators. I absolutely love it. That's a good one. And, of course, Boomer Doug, Ghost, as he said, a few mantias there. And, of course, Halloween specials, Sunday, 6 p.m. with Neil Cole and my panel, discussing a few more frights and scares and all the rest of it, and all of them won't be RPG, don't worry. So thank you lot. Thank you, Australia. Have a good night, have a good weekend, and I'm hopefully see you next week. So bye for now.
Bye.